What's up, guys? EG Lately here. Now, I'm going to be doing something a little different today. I'm going to be reacting to Jubilee's trans liberals versus trans conservatives. I don't normally do political videos, but I guess, with the state of things, it seems like everybody is getting involved in the political market. And I figure, why not me too? Got to get that clout somehow. I ain't going to get it with just playing video games all day. So, I feel the most important thing a person can do is share their views and their principles and what makes them who they are. So with that said, I'm going to share my views and I'm going to react to this video, giving my perspectives on what I think is right, what I think is wrong here. Now, I got to be honest, I don't know the first thing about being trans. Yeah, I got long hair and I'm very pretty, but that doesn't mean that I know anything about cutting off my genitals or feeling like I was born in the wrong body. I have a lot of opinions on this kind of stuff, so I figure an easy way to break it down would just be to bring up the topics that they're talking about and me to share my point of view with you guys. This is definitely a departure from what my videos normally are, which are just gameplay and lots of jet fighters, rollerblading, such and such like that. So I hope that you guys don't mind. I want to take this channel in a bit of a different direction where I make myself the focal point because it is my brand, actually. So, worst comes to worst. You guys all hate me, and no one wants to talk to me anymore after this. But with that said, let's jump into Jubilee. Jubilee is a YouTube channel that brings together liberals and conservatives, parents and children, all kinds of different yin and yang stuff. And then they throw them in there and they see if they can come up with any kind of middle ground. The reason I'm picking this one is because I feel like this is a very highly contested topic right now. And I feel like I have a lot to offer. I have a lot to say. In my words mean something. But with that said, I hope you guys won't block me if you don't like what I say. But this is just my opinion. Please don't get offended. Please don't try to cancel me. I mean, I don't know how you can cancel somebody who has no followers anyway. But you know what? Weirder things have happened. So with that said, let's jump in. Jubilee. Trans conservatives versus trans liberals.
Being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this. So you can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting that I thought this was a trans debate. That's what I thought.
Non-binary people fall under the trans umbrella. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe you could educate yourself a little bit on that.
I think I could educate
Then
you.
you would figure
I think I
out,
could educate
what
right?
reality is.
Oh, whoa.
Whoa.
It is a safety concern for trans women to share a female restroom. Can the agreeers please step forward?
Before we get into the topic, I want to give my perspective. I feel like a lot of men who are more cross-dressers than are trans have kind of taken advantage of this. So for me, do I feel that it's safe? 90% of the time, I feel like it wouldn't be a big deal. But that 10% chance would probably be where I worry the most. I'm a dad of a little girl, and I'll be honest, if I saw someone like Blair walk in after my daughter, I probably wouldn't think twice. Blair is a trans woman, looks like a woman, like she passes the test. But if somebody who looked like a guy was walking in after my daughter, I might have a problem with that. So that's just right off the top of my head, my initial reaction, but let's see what they have to say.
Just simply self-IDing into being trans women to utilize the female restroom and to harm women.
Or just be there. They're getting arousal from just being there.
There was a photo or it was a video that went viral, I think like just 2 weeks ago with some.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't be able to look at Blair. Like, I'd be able to look at this person. Actually, this guy looks like a dude too. These are some serious trans people, man. They got their look down. One look at Blair, and I'd have to look twice to be able to tell that she was ever a guy. Blair White is actually very famous on social media. But anyway, let's get back to it. Enough of me.
Some whole man with a boner in the women's restroom, and there's just some poor woman filming it. Like, am I just supposed to accept that this is here? So I think there's levels to it. I think that trans women who are actually trans, we're talking gender dysphoria, transitions, making the effort, probably once you reach a certain point in your transition where you can actually assimilate within that space and not cause a disruptance, that would probably be the ideal time to start doing that, right? Whereas, a cross-dresser who is emboldened to, in this current climate, say that they're trans, because now anything is trans if you say so, that person should probably stay absolutely out of women's restrooms, because you're there to get your rocks off, and the women are there to take a poop and a pee.
She's got a point. Again, I could see it being a very easy thing for a guy to dress like a woman and find a way into a bathroom, female bathroom. And I don't think it's okay to get their rocks off watching girls poop and pee. But you know what? To the normal person watching this might seem like a pretty easy topic to figure out. But there are people out there who have weird kinks, man. You know, pooping on the chest isn't just something they throw in movies. That's something that people are really into. Me, not so much. I'm more of a foot guy myself. I'm just kidding. I'm not. But you know what I mean? Like, just because something might seem normal to us does not mean that it's going to seem normal to them. This video, by the way, is an hour and a half. So if I get bored of a topic, we'll skip ahead. But this one's going to be a long haul, so I hope you guys don't mind. But anyway, let's get back to the video.
It's not the same. And I really empathize with women who, have an issue with it. And I can probably hear some women commenting, well, how do I know the difference between a fetishist and a real trans person?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard.
That's the only nuance that I know.
Almost hard as that guy in the bathroom with a boner, am I right? I'm gonna shut up now.
To give to it, which is there's different reasons people are trans, and some people really are trans because they're horny, and some people are trans because they really felt that way from, a young age or whatever.
I'm sure there's people out there who have fetishes for trannies. Tranny porn is definitely a thing. If anybody's ever been on Pornhub, I'm sure you guys know that. See, here's the thing though. I love Blair White. I don't watch much of her stuff, but when I quickly previewed watching this to see if it was something I'd be interested in doing a video on, I would say that, you'll see that the liberals are very hostile towards her during this whole thing, but you could tell she's almost kind of annoyed right off the get-go. So I don't know if there's words that went back and forth beforehand. Maybe they're jealous of her because of her social media presence. I'm not sure. Either that or she's just very, very passionate about this topic.
See, I agree to an extent. Like, when you go to transition, and this is fairly universal.
There's no way I would ever think this person was ever a girl. This looks like a dude, straight up. This person they got the deep voice and the testosterone. I would not take 2 looks at this person and think they were ever a girl. I just would think it's kind of like a nerdy, older looking guy.
Universal experience. Once you get to a certain point of passing, that's about the time that you would start going into the other bathroom, as opposed to not make the same sex uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Once you reach that point in your transition, a lot of things change, but you start to see things from another perspective. You start to see things from the perspective of a cis person.
Yeah.
And I actually offer some solutions to this, because I believe the free market can handle all of this stuff, because in government-run and government-funded buildings, there should always be a third space for us to use. And I do. When I go to the Capitol and stuff like that, I always use third spaces.
So third space being like a family bathroom that you can lock behind you to take your kid in and change. I think that's a perfectly reasonable expectation. Now, will private companies take the time to go and put a third bathroom in? Probably not, because it's probably expensive, and most of the time private businesses usually just have a men's room and a girl's room. I guess it's a solution, but is everybody in the world going to make a third bathroom just to make it convenient for a small minority of people? I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like the dollar speaks loudly, and if you ask someone, hey, are you going to build a third bathroom just in case one trans person comes in? Probably not. But I will tell you what, if you've ever been to a public bathroom or at a stadium, the girls' room is always down the line and the guys are always just coming in and out. So, maybe having a second bathroom that girls could use should they choose, or trainees can use, I don't think that's such a bad idea.
But I think that private property owners can make the rules for their establishment and figure out how to enforce those rules.
I wouldn't say third spaces for trans
exactly.
people.
Like, we're in a state right
general.
now. We're in a state right now where you have to allow anybody to use whatever restroom they want.
If you're a decent human being, you do what causes the least disturbance. So, for example, I filmed a YouTube video a few years ago where I entered a men's restroom just because I was responding to comments who were like, well, maybe you should use a men's restroom if you really feel like the way you feel. And so I said, okay, let's do it. Let's put a camera. And I was kicked out within seconds of the entire establishment, and it was a whole ruckus. So that.
Yeah, because she looks like a woman. You would never look at Blair and think that at any point she was a man, unless you are have them super trained eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like your gaydar. Well, I guess not. I wouldn't even really be gaydar because I don't think she's gay. I think that she looks like a woman. So, what do we even do here, guys? I'm losing my mind.
That's what I mean by, If you're a decent person, you do what causes the least amount of problems for people around you. And if you're, a moral person, you're going to be conflict avoidant in general when it's something like that, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point of causing issues for anyone, especially if you're really just trying to pee,
Honestly, just put
get
your
it
head
done.
down, go in, get out.
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, what I think Blair is taking the logical standpoint. If most people who have morals are gonna try to make everything convenient for the people around them, there's no reason to go in and throw a big hissy fit if you can't use the bathroom. I mean, our job is to go in there and pee and poop, not to go in there and socialize. Although I know some of you girls like to go into the bathroom and socialize, but personally for me, I'm going in there, I'm taking a piss, and I'm leaving. It's a pretty easy take. For me personally, I feel like there's got to be a line. If you look like Blair, it's probably easier and less conflict for you just to use the women's room. You look like a girl. I mean, I think that all three of the girls on screen right now could pass as women. Like, if they went into the women's room, I probably wouldn't think twice about it. But I guess the problem is, like, if you look like straight up like a dude and you're walking in the women's room, is that where we have an issue? You're rocking a full beard and you walk into the women's room, is that going to cause conflict? And I guarantee someplace it would. It's going to at some place. Not everybody's super progressive,
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
I want to comment on Blair's point. The one thing I kept hearing through all of the nuance is past.
This woman, she was invited to the White House. I've seen her in all kinds of things before in previous Jubilee episodes. If this is something you guys like, by the way, hit that like button and let me know, and I'll review more moving forward. If you want to know what my personal beliefs are, I would say I'm moderately right, maybe a little more libertarian. I believe live and let live is my motto. So, I mean, take that as you will. With the state of things right now, I would definitely say I tend to side more with conservatives and conservative beliefs than I do with liberals. That's not to say that before, like, I voted for Obama. I voted for Biden the second time, but I kind of regret that decision because, he is a nightmare. I probably would have, if I can go back and re-vote, I would have voted for Trump. I voted for Trump the first time. But I don't even like Trump this time. I'd like to see, like, someone like Ron DeSantis get into office this time. You're going to learn to dislike Blossom a lot throughout this video. I'm just warning you now. This woman's very opinionated and very sassy. A sassy black woman. That's Blossom.
Passability.
I never
Because
said that.
ultimately, when we talk about passability, it determines how you get harassed in the bathroom. Because honestly, if you don't look so passable or whatnot, people are going to say, "Oh, that's a man with a dress on," and then there's going to be discourse. But the reality of it is, honestly,
Passable. Yep.
who cares who's trans and who's cis going in the bathroom? You should be minding your own business, being able to pee and do your business in peace.
I'll tell you who cares. Parents. As the father of a 9-year-old girl, if I see a big burly man walking into the women's room right after I just sent my 9-year-old daughter in there, yeah, I'm going to have a bit of a concern. Now, I'm not saying that person is evil or whatnot, but as a father, if you don't think I'm going to worry about that, then you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. So it's not as easy as just who cares. That's not how that works.
For the most part, that conversation around this man with a boner on or whatever like that, I saw that picture and I thought to myself, that's really a right-wing talking point and conservative propaganda because that's their ideology.
How is it
when
It was a
comes
thing
to
that
trans.
happened.
It can't be propaganda and ideology at the same time. The one thing I'll tell you about conservatives is they really believe in what they preach. Go back into the 50s and 60s and try to walk into the bathroom as a woman into a men's room or a man into a woman's room, and I guarantee you they're going to have serious problems with that. So that's my main thing, is conservatives come from a more of a traditionalist ideal. It's not propaganda. I find that the left tends to throw everything as right-wing propaganda, when in reality, the conservatives, I think, have legitimate concerns. It's not like they're just making this stuff up to harass people.
I'm speaking. That's their ideology when it comes
Ooh,
to trans.
getting
is
snippy
because
already.
Conservatives have a
I think that Blossom knows who Blair is, and she does not like her. You're going to be able to see between these two. These are probably the two most known faces in this, but Blair by far has way more followers than all of these people combined, probably, because I think Blair talks to millions of people a day. Blossom is her biggest credit is that she was invited to the White House once, and she was on Jubilee from time to time.
basic level.
But yeah, no
understanding of
love
what
there.
Transness is in the first place. And with all due respect, I do not think any of you are basic, but they use you as the baseline to amplifying this propaganda.
How is it
ask you a question.
propaganda if it's a thing that really happened? It was caught on video. Like it was an actual occurrence. It
Well
wasn't
said.
staged. It happened, and that's not the only. It's not an isolated incident.
But that's not enough for me to say because actors can do that. Who knows? They could have been an actor trying to make a point against trans people. But
I mean, that's true. If you watch YouTube at all, you know that, just to play devil's advocate here for a second, it could easily have been a propaganda or a prank stunt. If it's not, that's a bigger issue. Whether it is or not, it's still a possible thing that can happen. So to ignore that and to act like that's not a feasible idea, then, whatever.
this has always been our battle. It's just like, from what I just heard you were saying with your talking points, because I did understand what you were saying. I just got the word passability out of there, and
Which I didn't say that word at all.
No,
Yeah,
I'm saying
he
that
said
word.
passability.
I'm saying
She didn't say it. He
I'm-
did. And the
I'll say
problem,
it.
the left.
Okay, I can't.
The
I
problem
couldn't
with
hear. I
the-
couldn't-
Wait, didn't Blossom say passability? She was the first person I heard say passability. I know that Jubilee cuts a lot of the conversation out, which kind of frustrates me a little bit because I'd love personally to hear the whole thing, but they always say go watch them on Patreon, you'll get the whole thing. So I guess it's just a money grab. Yeah. So I'm guessing someone must have mentioned something about passability. Passability meaning like, do you look like Blair or do you look like Blossom here? Now Blossom's got boobies and I guess could pass as a woman, but definitely has a much more manly physique.
I just couldn't hear it back there.
The
No, what I was
liberals,
saying
the
was,
liberals always use the.
yeah. No, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you said that word. What I was getting out of what you were saying, the one word that was coming to me was passability. This is Blossom saying it. And so passability politics is really a thing in our trans community, especially when we come to the debate of restrooms.
Well, you can say it's politics, but actually it's just real life, right? It's just about
Correct.
where
I
you're
agree.
able to assimilate to and where you're not. And I think one of the biggest problems in the trans community is the community by and large has seemed to reject assimilation and seems hell-bent on.
That's not true.
I think it's absolutely true.
I'll tell you what though, like Blair is 100% in my opinion a woman. The mannerisms, the way she talks, like she got the Valley Girl thing going on. It's not a guy pretending to be a girl. Like if you're ever going to make a case to me that someone was born in the wrong body, it was definitely Blair. Blair 100% comes off to me like she's a woman.
Which is, you see people talking about how you don't need to work on your transition at all to enter women's restrooms, and I think that that is so selfish.
That drives
so
me
it's
crazy.
so disregarding of women who may or may not feel uncomfortable.
But the trans woman experience is not monolithic. So who are we
I
to
never said it
police transness? Why are we policing other people's transness
I'm
and
just
how they
listening to
show
women.
up?
We have to
But
protect women.
Why are y'all policing?
Well
though? That's
said.
what I don't understand.
But you're using
I-
words
it's
that we're not
policing.
using. It's not policing. We're listening
is
to women,
policing.
and if you have 50%, we won't say 50%, but if you have a large chunk of the population of women saying that they are uncomfortable with a certain thing, a good person leans in and listens.
So
they
why are
don't
you
just
not listening
reject
to
it.
other trans women, Blair?
I
think
do
that's-
all day. I am
okay,
right
so,
now.
But you didn't. And
Getting
I'm not,
snippy
I'm not
already.
Trying to be combative or whatever. Like,
She's not trying to be combative, but she's being combative. Now, as far as the whole policing thing, don't get me wrong. Like, okay, for example, I work at a job, and at this job, there's a guy who just started, and he's been like a half hour late every single day. At my job, we're salaried. We don't clock in. If that guy continues to keep being late, he's going to draw attention to my department. A lot of times we'll walk up to him and say, "Hey man, can you just be on time? You know, we don't want everybody paying attention to us because they can't count on us to get here when we're supposed to be here." Is that policing or is that me? I guess that would be policing. Blair's trying to make it so that she can go to the bathroom with less hassle and these people come in and disrupt their peace. If these incidents didn't happen, LGBTQIRA plus divided minus whatever their thing is, are going to start getting hassled a lot more because the more these incidents happen, the more attention's on them. So Blair is just simply saying, listen, this is a bad look for us. If this person goes into a restroom and something bad happens, then that's going to look bad on the rest of us. So I can't tell people that I'm trans. Like Blair could probably just tell everybody she's a woman and you wouldn't find out until you got in bed with her, to be honest. Or I don't know what Blair's got going on down there at the bottom, but she's making a solid point. You know, like Blossom's always like, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? I'll tell you why she cares, because it's a bad look for them.
like that. I'm just trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying, what the middle ground would be between you and I, because you said one side and that's great, but what about the side of trans women? If we're not bringing both sides into this conversation,
Here's what I would say
then it
then.
is unbalanced.
Here's what I would say then, because I do understand both sides. I didn't, I'm almost a decade into my transition, which means I was one time a year in, 6 months in, 2 months in. So I understand that, but I also knew at the very beginning of my transition that if I'm not at a place physically where I'm not making people feel uncomfortable, or I'm making people uncomfortable, then
Right.
that's on me. That's my
Correct.
responsibility to make sure that I'm going places a certain way to make sure that they're comfortable.
Because it's
Seems like she's making like logical sense. Like nothing Blair has said so far seems like an extreme take to me. Also, by the way, I pause a lot because if you want to just watch the whole video through, I'll leave a link in the description. I'm not here to just take someone's content. This is strictly my reactions to this content. Jubilee works hard to make these videos, so I'm not just going to play it all the way through. I believe this is my video, so I'm giving you guys my takes on this. So I hope I'm not bothering you by pausing it every 5 seconds to give you my take. But there's a lot to talk about here.
for your
was my
safety
respons-
also too, right?
Well,
Would you also
you
say
can-
that you're safe?
Well,
your
I
safety
know that
plays a part.
you seem to be looking at through the lens of always trans being the priority, and I'm looking at it through the lens of women being the priority here. There's
But
plenty of
why-
situations
Why? I just want to know
because
why
it's them who
around
would
that.
fall victim to not actual trans women, as I said, but people posing as trans women,
I have
people
an
who
answer
are
to
But
that.
trans
Yeah.
women are also victims of that as well.
I saw a lot of people talking about a story where men have been being arrested and claiming they're trans so that they can get put into the women's prison. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're having a hard time getting laid in the real world, I'm pretty sure if you get put into a female prison, you're just going to be able to sling dick anywhere you want because those girls don't get it from anywhere else. Pretty sure girls have been impregnated in prison. Now, I don't know that for sure, but that's what a lot of people say on the internet. Well, take that with a grain of salt, but it sounds logical to me. Like if I was going to go to prison for the rest of my life, I would definitely not cut my hair. I'd shave my beard and I'd start walking with my booty shaking. Like I would definitely tell them I'm a woman, because why would I want to get locked up with dudes when I can go get locked up with a whole bunch of girls? So it's like a no-brainer. It's just an example of people who would abuse something like this.
Yeah, I
since
just
the
want to
time-
make this
nobody
point.
else is
I just
talking.
want to make this point as well. But trans women also experience.
Yeah. The producer just said we'd love to hear from everybody else, and she's like, "Yeah, that's great, but I'm gonna keep talking." Like, why would you have someone on a debate who's gonna just hijack the whole thing? It doesn't make sense to me. And Jubilee puts this girl on here all the time. And I use the term girl loosely, but I've seen her on Jubilee episodes before, and she's notorious for taking over debates. And you can't have that. If it's supposed to be middle ground with a whole bunch of people, it shouldn't just be the Blossom show. But I think Blossom's like, this is my chance to get some exposure and get that clout. So I'ma talk.
Experience violence and also need
No
that
doubt.
protection. And so that's the
No
thing.
doubt.
Like it should be an even playing field. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is I would like to challenge you to expand to make sure you're being inclusive of both sides or whatever, because
I
we
know.
have to have these important conversations between cis women and trans women.
I
And-
mean, I
and I'm
think-
just gonna say, and I'm not gonna just say cis women. I'm gonna say women, biological women. I want to make it inclusive of everyone.
I think the middle ground, though,
She just
is,
said a
and I
whole
feel like
lot
I'm not coming at this from an extreme place.
and
I feel like an
said
extreme
nothing
place
at
would
the
be
same
like,
time.
No trans women in the bathroom ever. That's the extreme position. I'm saying work on your transition, take it as your responsibility, and be respectful. And that's the middle ground, right?
This is a self-preservation issue, right? So if somebody's in the bathroom and they have a boner, that looks bad on all of us. And when our community's not
Let's be honest. If you walk into a bathroom with a boner, no matter who you are, it's gonna look bad. Like if I walk into the men's room with a boner, like a raging boner, nobody's gonna be excited about that. I mean, maybe some. No. Let's just go with nobody's gonna be excited if I walk into the bathroom with a boner.
not calling that out and not
No
saying that this
boners in
is
the
allowed.
bathroom.
How many I'm just
No,
to
I
your
get
point.
it.
How many cases has that occurred?
It happens.
That-
It happens a
it-
lot. We see it's happening all the time.
No, I
There
have to
are-
actually
say it's
see.
there
happening
are-
all the time.
There are
see
Twitter
data.
accounts. I mean, there's Twitter accounts with millions of followers.
These
that show this
producers are
stuff
like, "What are we
multiple
doing?"
times. And so we're showing that these types of things do actually cause harm to trans people. So if you're looking at it at a trans lens and to say, what are we doing? We need to combat that stuff and come together to combat that
It does
stuff.
not encompass the entire trans experience.
No,
and
you're
that's all
right.
I just want to say.
Yeah, I think I see a lot of different points from everybody here. Honestly, like
Whoa. Homie ain't even trying to hide the fact. Like, a lot of these trans women look like women. This is just a dude that looks like he's cross-dressing. No offense to anybody out there. I mean, he's got the 5 o'clock shadow. Perfect example. If I saw Alexander walk into the bathroom after I just sent my 9-year-old daughter in there, you best believe I'm going to have an issue with that. Not saying that Alexander is going to be attacking her or anything like that. It's definitely going to make me concerned because evidently, clearly, this is a man in women's clothes. And I think that actually they talk about that he's not trans, but he's non-binary pronouns. There's so many different versions of people today. It's hard to keep up with.
Like, I can understand like how some women may feel unsafe with men in the restroom. Men, when I say men, I mean men. I'm not talking about trans women. So being a non-binary person that sometimes has the choice to either go into a men's restroom looking like this, you can.
What is that? It's just a face that Blair just made. Hang on, we gotta see this. There it is. Look at that face. Yeah, because Blair's clearly having the same opinion as me. Like, you look at Alexander, he's not even trying to change his name. His name's Alexander. I've never met a woman named Alexander. So Blair's literally like, you look like a dude. Like, you're going to go into the bathroom dressed like that. You don't think that's going to upset somebody who has, like, kids around who might send them into the bathroom? You know, we'd like to be able to send our 10, 11, 12-year-olds to the bathroom without having to usher them in there with our hands. Now, granted, you want to keep tabs on them, but if Alexander walked in after your child, after you just sent him to the bathroom, I mean, I guess he'd probably get the same reaction if he went into the men's room, but I feel like less of a reaction, maybe. I don't know, but I just wanted to zoom in on Blair's face because that's funny. Like, she's literally like, "What are you even talking about, bro?"
Looking like this, you can look at me looking like this.
It's just interesting. I thought this was a trans debate. That's what I
don't
thought.
even.
Non-binary
That's what I
people
thought.
are
I will.
Good. I mean, she's got a point, though. This is supposed to be trans liberals versus trans conservative. As far as I can tell, Alex is not a tranny, is a cross-dresser. I think there's a difference, you know. I feel like the difference would be surgical, you know. Like, these other people have clearly made efforts to look like the sex that they want to change to. Alexander seems like he's caught somewhere between the middle, which suggests to me that he's very confused.
Part of the
Under the
trans
trans
I will say
umbrella.
that.
Or she, whatever he's going by
So, I don't know,
today.
maybe you could educate yourself a little bit
I
on
think
that,
I
and
could
maybe
educate
then you would figure out,
I think I could educate
you know, what
right?
the reality is
I'm
and what
sure there's
trans actually
a
means.
non-binary Jubilee episode.
Wow, Blair is coming with the fire, dude. Any of these conservative trans activists, props, because that's got to be a hard take to represent conservatives being trans when you know that the large majority of conservatives probably don't have a favorable view of trans people. Actually, to be honest, conservatives I talk to could care less if you want to be a tranny after you're 18. It's their biggest problem is always kids. They don't want kids becoming trans because, you know, a 12-year-old doesn't have. Well, I mean, we're going to get into that part of the debate, so we'll talk about that later. But Blair is making perfect sense. Like, I don't look at this person and think tranny. I look at this person and think crossdresser. And that's just from my ignorant eyes because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know much about this stuff. I'm just taking on face value as a normal person with a normal perspective. That's what I see.
Well, because it's not a debate about who is really trans and who is not.
It can be.
We're talking about
Ooh,
restrooms as a
she's
trans
sassy.
non-binary. When I go into a place that only has men's and women's restrooms, and I'm dressed like this, my choice to go into the men's restroom at that point puts me.
Yeah. So that is your choice to do that. If you walk into the women's room, you're still gonna be in danger because the dude's boyfriend is gonna be like, he's gonna want to still kick your butt. Let's be honest. Like, you don't want to. I don't promote violence of any kind. If you see someone dressed like this, leave them alone. You know, you can compliment their dress or something. Like, for the first and foremost, I just want to be very clear. I think everybody should treat everybody with respect no matter what. With that said, he's making the choice to go out dressed like this with the 5 o'clock shadow and the female fashion sense. If he doesn't think that he's going to get some strange looks, I mean, that is the compromise that he's making. You know, I mean, that is the compromise he's made with himself. But I feel like people look at this person and think, man. I don't look at Blair and think, man. So Blair, she's making perfect sense. Perfect sense. All right, I'm going to try to let this play a little bit. I just have a lot to say on this.
6 years ago, when I've transitioned almost 8 years ago, but 6 years ago, it was never an issue for me to use the women's room. Girls would literally drag me in there with them and say, "Girl, you need to be in our bathroom." And I was like,
Jessica
I
looks
felt
like an old
uncomfortable
lady.
back then. I don't pass.
She could pass
I
for an
know I
old
don't
lady.
pass, so that's a
Oh, don't be so hard on yourself, girl. I think that she could pass as someone's, like, eccentric auntie, you know? Don't be so hard on yourself, Jessica.
me problem. And I'm not going to turn my fear of being attacked in the men's room into a woman's problem. It's still a me problem. So I
Wow.
need to work on myself.
That's
and
deep.
It sucks. Does it suck? Yes, it sucks. I don't pass. I know I don't pass. But I still respect women enough, and I'm some trans people aren't capable of handling themselves against a man, but I am confident in my ability to do that. And not everybody can. I get that, but it's just
He's like, I
now,
beat that
6 years
ass
ago,
if
I used
someone
to go in
messes
the
with
room.
me.
Now I don't, because women have
I
spoke
beat
out. they've
that
come out and
booty.
said,
Some
"We're not
man steps to me,
comfortable.
I'ma
There's too many
smack him.
self-ID'd people out there just taking advantage," and I choose to use the men's room to protect them.
I can definitely actually almost empathize with a lot of trans women in their experience in the bathroom and a lot of the turmoil with.
All right, the one on the left, little less manly looking, but Shane looks like a dude. You know, I feel like I would look at Shane and I would be like, you're a guy. What's up, Shane? High five, bro. Anyway, I'm gonna stop commenting on their looks. I'm just pointing out, like, the principle of this whole debate is, are you gonna draw attention to yourself going into the females' room looking like if Shane went into the guys' room, I wouldn't notice. You know, I wouldn't think twice about it. I would just think he was going into poop. He could sneak a pee in there if he wants, but that's kind of the meat and potatoes of this. If you don't look like the part, maybe I don't know. I'm gonna shut up.
Going in and especially with passability, but the layer that I feel like in the conversation that's missing here is actually trans men. And also the fact that I was born biologically female, and a lot of the things that trans women experience of violence in the bathroom is what I experienced as a child. So the reason why my education here is not necessarily to create an idea that I need to conform to Eurocentric standards. Myself, I'm a 6 foot tall trans man, size 13 shoe, so I don't fit into the Eurocentric standards of what a woman is, and I never did as a child. I was bullied relentlessly for this and isolated from many spaces. So this discussion about trans women being in the restroom also affects biological women, because guess what? Biological women come in all shapes and sizes. There are, a lot of lesbian women that deal with this issue that I've related with and empathize, because we both get pulled out of the restroom and thrown in, and guys try to beat us up because we're in a restroom with women.
Maybe when he first started transitioning, but I don't think anybody I know would look at Shane and think that that's a woman. Nobody would be able to call out right away that this is a guy. I mean, this isn't a guy. He looks like a guy to me. And I like to think that I have like a baseline view on all this stuff. Like, I work in some rough bars, and I'll be honest, if he went in and used the men's room, I don't think anybody would say anything to him, to be honest.
Women. And then on top of it, to add that layer that it's not even being discussed in any mainstream, that this is just completely wiped out, and that you're standing up for women, but you're not standing up for women children. You're not standing up for biological females that are children. You're only standing up for what really affects you. And it's kind of sad that the idea that passability is you need to work on your transition. A lot of folks, especially in our community, have no access to finances, resources, jobs, to even get their foot in the door to get access to hormones. So you're putting all of these barriers just for them to be able to go to the restroom, which is a natural thing.
You're going to find out later that comment is not correct. The comment being people don't have access to the hormones that they need to get. You're going to find out that it's a lot easier to get a hold of these hormones than you think it is.
We all have to do. So what do I need to do? Piss outside? Because that's how I was treated my entire childhood.
Nothing wrong with peeing outside. Just don't do it near schools or children.
I just feel like when this whole topic comes up, like, it obviously goes back to, like, there's dudes like jerking off in the bathroom, and, like, to me, like,
there's dudes jerking off in the bathroom, man. God damn it. I'll be honest. I've never jerked off in a men's room, and I sure hope that people aren't in there spanking it, because we're in there to pee. We ain't in there to, like, dump a load. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's a poop.
like when I hear that, I'm like, okay, like, but that's not trans women. So when we talk about this conversation, and it seems like the fear is like literally cisgender straight men who are being creeps. And what sucks is cis straight men can be like creepy, and then it's like trans women, trans men are like paying the price for that. And I feel like, you know what, that's what's really hard about it, is because then I think people get the idea, or some people have the belief trans women are just like, they're just men in dresses, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, for so many trans women and so many trans men, the safest place for them is the bathroom that aligns with their gender. And if you go to a place where it's illegal to do that, or you have to go and like, what's your ID, or like your birth certificate, it puts you in an objectively unsafe situation. And for me, like, I'm like, if I walk in the women's room, I mean, I know I like look like I look 12, but like I feel like someone would be like, get out of here.
He
you know
does.
what I mean?
He
But,
does
like,
look like 12.
That's the vibe. Like, I think you got to remember.
Yeah, if Sasha walked into the women's room, he'd probably get kicked out. I'm just saying. He looks like a young boy. I think we heard enough about this topic. Let's move on to the next topic.
Gender military ban. Agreeers?
I support the transgender military ban. I tried getting into the military twice. The first time I was rejected because of my vision. The second time I was rejected because of the medications I was on. And I also have a history of anxiety. And I was also a drug addict for like 10 years of my life. You know, surprise. Proud to say I'm 3 years clean. It's not discriminatory. Like, getting into the military is very hard these days. Unless we are in a huge war and they're desperate for people, getting into the military is actually a lot harder than you think it is. So I support the military ban. We can't be having people come into the military who are trying to figure out whether or not they're men or women while also trying to look after the people around them. Because to me, it's a sense of mental confusion that's taking place if you're having gender dysphoria. I just don't think there's a place for that on the battlefield.
I think that oftentimes when you talk about trans people in the military, people forget that most places, if we're talking about feet on the ground and really going into war zones, are really dangerous for trans people. And so it's really an extra risk.
You're talking about the culture that exists over
Yeah,
there.
the Middle East, you know,
yeah,
it's
so
like that's not exactly
the
trans
friendliest
friendly.
place
It's
for
actually
us,
the
yes.
opposite.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you were taken as a prisoner of war and you were in an Arab country and they discover that you are a female parading as a man, take Mulan, for instance. If Mulan was captured, like, I know Disney would make it G-rated, but Mulan would be probably put through the worst torture a person could be put through. Like, you could torture a guy, but you could torture a girl in so many different ways, you know? And that's, you know, do you really want that on your conscience, or would you rather just keep sending the men in, you know?
Medications that we take sometimes put us in conflict with being able to actually be combat ready.
That's
but
true.
there is some nuance here, obviously, like if there was a trans cook.
I was
or a
rejected just
trans
for
medic,
anxiety
I'm not exactly
medication.
going to be upset, but for the most part, when it
I,
comes to combat.
I hate supporting, like what you just said, I hate supporting it because it goes to the narrative of the should athletes compete in sports, you know, but
And I don't know why they don't even bring this up. That would have been a great question, because first the answer is no, they should not. I have no problem with a woman trying to compete with men because, I mean, it'll be very evident that the woman will have a lot harder time keeping up. Men competing in women's sports, like the swimmer, like that's just a completely unfair advantage, in my opinion. Again, it's, you know, and I would have loved to have seen them talk about this, but they don't bring this topic up.
Athletes?
yeah,
They
the
shouldn't.
drugs we
Yeah,
take
she's like, they shouldn't.
do weaken us, you know, so we're not, like you just said, combat ready, but we're also not as physically strong as the guy counterparts.
It's
standing
true.
right
If you're
next-
taking
And I will
estrogen,
say,
you're
like,
not going to
as a
be as
person
strong.
with HIV, I was diagnosed at 18. I couldn't go into the military, like, because I couldn't get Biktarvy overseas.
Well, that and you were shot and a medic went to go treat you, they are now susceptible to HIV through the bloodshed that you're spilled, or if someone's, like, I don't know if you ever seen Saving Private Ryan, but sometimes when people get shot, blood splatters on the guy next to you, and you don't want your, you know, comrades being worried about getting too close to you, because if you get shot and blood goes on them, they risk getting HIV. So it's not just Biktarvy. There's multiple reasons why you wouldn't want somebody with HIV in the military. With that said, though, there is a lot of advances in HIV medication. HIV is much more treatable nowadays than it used to be, which I'm happy for, because I don't like seeing anybody suffer, no matter what it is that they have.
You know?
Yeah, so I will say, as probably the only person that served in the military on this entire panel.
Thank you for your service, Sarah.
Okay, the thing about it is, I think that there is a lot of nuance in this. I actually have friends that are currently serving in the military. I think there was a lot of misrepresentation of what the trans ban actually did. You know, you have soldiers, if you have surgeries, they go on profile, which means they can't actually do their job. They can't do PT. If you have
PT
bomb
stands for
surgery, it
physical
takes a year.
training.
And so as a leader, that person
Physical
is still
tests.
in a position of a job of somebody that should be doing it. I don't mind somebody
Physical
who is
something.
actually on
Physical therapy?
hormones going there, because
Physical
there's a lot of
tasks.
people. I mean, people take PTSD medications overseas. They actually take 6 months of medication with them. So a full-out ban, I don't necessarily support, because I think that everybody in the military, as long as you can do your job, you can go in there and nobody really cares. But it is those times when, if you can't perform your job, that becomes an issue. You talk about with HIV, actually, most people don't even realize this. If you contract HIV while you're in, you can stay in a
Yeah.
non-deployable job.
Right.
Wow, that is interesting. I did not know that. Sarah coming with the facts. Now, listen, anybody else shouldn't have anything to say to Sarah because Sarah actually served. So Sarah knows firsthand what all this stuff means and what's important. I don't know what the liberals are going to come in and argue. I think nobody has more of a credential to speak on this topic than Sarah.
Right. And then also, you know, if we want to just get super real, you have the trans suicide rate. And if you really want to compound that by the veteran suicide rate, that's not exactly a concoction for very positive results. So I see how a trans ban could actually benefit us. And Lord knows I'm not trying to get drafted. So yeah, I'm all good with that.
Dropping truth bombs there. Can't wait to hear what these people have to say.
I think it's very
Come sit next to me.
to keep trans people out of the military. We pay our bills here. We pay our taxes here. We are Americans. We deserve to serve this country as well.
Everybody who wants to serve deserves a chance to try and serve. The fact of the matter is just because you're a taxpayer doesn't mean that, you know, you need to go be in the military. Like I don't really see Blossom has a habit of doing this. Like I don't see what paying your taxes has anything to do with serving in the military. I pay my taxes. If I want to go shoot somebody in the other country, I'm going to go shoot somebody in the other country.
However, you all did raise some great points about the concern and safety of trans people.
I think there's way more reasons why trans people should not be serving in the military than should be serving in the military. Because the only thing I can think of off the top of my head why trans people should serve in the military, more people, more bodies, and that's it. Everything else is a counterpoint to that. You know, I'm sure there's some very talented trans people who would do great work in the military. Push comes to shove, you'd much rather have a big, strong man in there.
And I do agree that something does need to be done about that to protect us. Who's protecting us in the military? Who is?
I mean, if you're even diagnosed with like mild social anxiety,
Soldiers
you're
are
not eligible to enter the military. If you have like a crooked left, pinky toe, you're not eligible. So discriminatory.
Blair knows her stuff.
That word sounds pretty in today's climate, very much like, oh no, discrimination, but it's not always bad. Sometimes it's for the safety, and it's like, when it comes to the military,
Blair's super smart.
America safe.
No wonder
that
she has so many
priority over
followers.
everyone's feelings being hurt.
Discrimination is discrimination, and I don't think there's
not always a
any other
negative
way
thing, though.
around it.
Well,
It's
we-
still
we need to-
discrimination.
I don't think that the military not letting me in was discrimination. I think that they were like, we can't be having someone getting off medicine trying to go through boot camp. Basically, you're wasting a spot for someone else who might want to try and get in there. Like, I think, liberals always tend to want to, all right, maybe not liberals, because like Bill Maher and stuff have more reasonable takes. But these people, like I would say Blossom is a lefty, which is not really a liberal in my perspective, but much more like someone who has very strong opinions. Look at this face too, by the way. Like, it's just for a second, just look at this face she's making. She looks disgusted. Like she's just waiting for someone to give her some crap. This is the definition of I wish a mother would. That's Blossom.
That doesn't mean it's negative, though.
Our troops over there, while they're over there, you're talking, or protect them before so they can get in.
Both. It is important to protect all trans people in the military.
Well, we can't waste
And so what if the
resources
best way to protect them
protecting
is not putting them in the Middle East with Muslims that are going to kill them?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to interject
Good
your
point.
point about suicide. So as somebody who has worked in community service with community members directly, a lot of their suicide issues actually revolve around access to finances. And the military is one of the highest employers of transgender people. So we actually see the suicide rate drop. And
Well,
for me
that's a good
personally,
point, but it's one of the highest employers of anybody.
But if you're suicidal and you go into a job that has a high likelihood of PTSD, causing PTSD and all these other issues, then it becomes a big issue because then you already have one mental illness, and then you're compounding it with more.
And when
If you're already susceptible to suicide, right, and you go to war and you watch everybody you love die, you are now 10 times more likely to commit suicide than you would be you didn't already have a suicidal percentage against you before even entering, if that makes any sense. I kind of twisted my words up, but I think for the most part, a lot of people will understand what I was trying to say there. So basically, to sum it up, if you are more prone to suicide, you're putting through a traumatic situation, chances are your suicide rates will go up much higher than they were before. So I don't necessarily agree with what Shane's saying.
You're on, a very strict regimen of, if you're trans and if you're really trans, and we can get into who's really trans later because I'm gonna have a lot to say
wanna know
about
what
that.
you're
But
talking about
if you're gonna
that.
be on hormones.
Oh, she's calling out Alexander because Alexander should not be in this panel. He's not a trans person. He's non-binary. That means today he felt like being a woman. So this was basically Jubilee, like, I don't know. So I don't want to say they're social justice warring, but it's like copium. They're trying to show like, hey, today he's a woman, so he can be on the panel. And Blair's like, no, not a tranny.
Right? You're not always going to have access to those drugs when you're deployed and when you're in those situations. That's why I say if you're, a line cook or something, if you're whatever, that's one thing. But if we're talking about combat, you're not exactly going to have access to your testosterone blockers and your
How
estrogen.
do you know that? Because medical.
Because you'll be in the field, Blossom. You'll be in the field, and if they're trying to get MREs and ammunitions, they don't have room to stick your puberty blockers in there. You know what I mean? Like, so Blair's making a perfectly good point. They're not going to waste resources making sure that they get you. This is the same reason why people who have medication can't be on inactive duty. They're not going to make room for your puberty blockers when they can fit a couple extra clips of an M16 ammo. You know what I'm saying?
Because they
Medical
don't
care
have
is
those kind of
covered
pharmacies in the Middle East.
Medical care is covered in the military, so they should have access to that. So that is false information.
No, it went right over Blossom's head. She has no idea what Blair even just said. Blossom hears that they're not going to give you medicine, when in reality, if you're in a combat zone, like I just explained it to you, like Blossom didn't pick up on anything that just said. I don't know why Jubilee keeps bringing her back on. Honestly, I don't think that, like, this isn't a slight against Blossom. I guess this is kind of a slight against Blossom, but I just don't feel like her mental capacity is up to par with the rest of the guests. Seems like she's just barking the loudest. She's just barking real loud without any kind of real detail to what she's saying.
And also, you guys are forgetting the fact, well,
but-
hold on. You guys have all forgotten the fact of what is the flip side for these transgender individuals that are signing up for the military and they're taken out, and that was their life plan. Where are they supposed to work and where is their employment supposed to be?
I don't know. What does someone do whose life plan it was to become a big YouTube star? Get a job. I work 2 jobs and I'm still trying to make it on YouTube and I'm failing miserably, but at least I'm trying. If you really had your heart set on being in the military and they say no, you're just like everybody else who tries to play the lottery and doesn't win. Back to work. It's you take what you can get. This guy's acting like it's the end of the world for these people because they can't get in the military. Like, if you want to get in the military so badly, don't change your life into a way that's going to make it harder for you to get in the military. Simple as that. That's the one thing that drives me nuts about transgender people is they want everybody around them to cater to them instead of them catering to the rest of the world and the way that things actually work. It's honestly incredibly frustrating, and I think it's why people resent a lot of transgender people. Like, if more transgender people were like Blair or Sarah, people would absolutely have no problem with them. They'd be like, okay, you guys are logically sound people. I always thought that transgender people had mental health issues going on, and many of them I believe still do. But when I hear someone like Blair speak, in my mind, I see someone who's very smart, very educated, someone who has a lot to offer as far as opinions go. And then when I hear someone like Blossom speak, all I hear is someone who's angry and just wants someone to fight with. That's the difference between the two.
Because the mental illness that happens
I agree, it's
through
horrible.
homelessness and the lack of resources
agree,
that
it's
come.
horrible.
So that is also the flip side of that. So if folks
but they
don't
didn't
have,
kick
hold
anybody
on
out.
1 second, but if they don't have access
Hold on, let me shush the one person who knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to the military.
to a job that could offer them support and research and access to medication, access to benefits, lifetime benefits. That's something that most transgender people in any sector of any job.
So do you want an answer to your question, or are you just going to round? Because I can answer. You said,
Oh, Blair gives 0 fucks, dude.
what about those people that were kicked out? I actually think it's bad if you are someone who was in it and you really are, because just like, Sarah, and I've met many trans veterans that I've paid respect to publicly on social media, and I think that's amazing, actually. So if you're kicked out and it was once, the norm
But
that
what's
you
the
could,
resources you're
I'm
offering them,
speaking
though?
though. If you're kicked
Yeah.
out and it once was the norm,
She's like, shut the hell up, bitch. I'm taking you to school. Although that was kind of rude, Blair. Do better.
for you to participate in the military, that's sad. But at the same time, if that is what is determined for the ultimate safety and effectiveness of the military, nothing should come before that.
Blair, have you?
See, he just shut off what Blair was saying halfway through because of the snarky comment, which is probably on Blair's fault because Blair, instantly the minute you shush someone, they're gonna hate you after that. Like nobody's ever been like, oh, like you've never been able to be like shh to someone, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were speaking. But no, they're in their head. They're like, I would love to slap you at this point. So I feel like Blair maybe could have done that a little better.
Have you ever
Because the
worked
second
directly
bomb,
with
because the
trans
second
people?
bomb.
Have you ever worked
I
directly?
am right now.
No,
We're
directly
surrounded by
in
them.
services in terms of nonprofits
Sir,
and
she's
actually
a
getting
trans person.
clientele.
She's not
That's my
grassroots.
entire
She is
career.
not a grassroots
Not
person
grassroots.
because truth be told, a lot of our
What does that
community
even mean?
is in grassroots.
Have you ever had a
Nonprofit-
client?
Grassroots. How are you a grassroots trans person? How does that work? Like, are you going door to door handing out pamphlets? Like that's when I think of grassroots, that's what I think of. So because Blair doesn't go to the local community shelter, her opinion is somewhat less validated. I can promise you, like I don't watch Blair, but I know that she has, like I've seen people do videos on her. So I know that, and I've seen her on Joe Rogan. So I know that she probably affects more people than this whole entire panel all put together.
List of
organizations that are
transgender people that
trans-led.
you
Hold
actually
on just
took
a
care
second.
of.
Hold on just a second.
Took care of them.
Trans-
like
Everybody's
every
shushing
day.
everybody.
I'm
And
sorry,
offering them
excuse me.
services, getting them through
I've helped a
services.
lot of trans.
Excuse me. I haven't gotten my 5 seconds of fame. I need this to be Blossom Lee or Juba Blossom. Juba Blossom, please. This is why they bring me on here, because I'm so smart and you are all so dumb. That's what she sounds like. Excuse me. Excuse me. I have a lot to say here. I mean, it's going to make you dumber for listening, but I still have a lot to say.
People in my life,
Trans-led
yes.
organizations that are ran by trans people. I really want to see what you've done for those organizations because I don't see any of y'all on the front line.
Frontline, like there's a war. Like there's a war going on with trans people shooting at straight people and straight people shooting at trans people. That doesn't exist. There's no front line. All right. Look at this face too. Like she really believes that she just made such a great point. Those foundations and organized groups all are super woke. They go against what Blair believes. So she's like the opposite side. So she wouldn't want to work with them people. Like why would she want to work against herself? She's trying to change the idea of trans people in the eyes of society, and I think she does a great job of it. But Blossom is like your prototypical cringy trans SJW woke. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. What was that face? That was the face of evil right there. Blossom like really feels like she just did a slam dunk, but she made literally 0 points. Like that point made no sense whatsoever.
Front line. Like,
fighting
what are you
against the-
talking about?
I'm
I've
on the front
dedicated.
line.
Hold on. I've dedicated my entire life to, in my own way, and you can disagree with it because we all have our vehicles and our methods towards
Absolutely.
promoting trans acceptance and the ultimate progression of the quality of life of trans people. I've dedicated my entire life to that, right? I access millions of people every single month on all my social media. And I have people
true,
reaching
she
out
does.
all the time saying that I've saved them from,
what are
just
you
like we
physically
mentioned,
doing,
suicide.
Blair?
What are you physically doing? She is sitting down and she's recording videos, sending them out. What do you want her physically to do? Go, like, give massages? Go door to door handing out pamphlets? The day you see Blair White going door to door handing out pamphlets is the day that I'm a famous YouTube star, because it's never going to happen.
Physically doing. That is the point.
Have you ever
Okay,
taken
so
on a
here's the
client
thing.
loan?
Do you
Have you
have,
ever
like, a
had
here's the
someone
thing.
come to you
I'm sorry, do
homeless
you
and
have,
give
like-
them
I'm
resources?
I'm
You have,
sure
like,
you
a
guys
Have you ever made $30,000 a year for doing slave labor work? That's essentially what they're saying.
feel very.
Humanitarian youth fund
You guys
or
are asking
something?
questions and you have no interest in the answer. I'm sure you guys are very, very proud of
Because
the
you're
fact that
going
you can
around in
walk.
circles, Blair. That's
What? She is not going around in circles, dude. Like, Blossom, I feel like you come in with these. First off, Blossom, you're never going to watch my videos, so I really don't care. Blossom literally just said that Blair's talking in circles. How can Blair talk in circles if she didn't even get to say her statement yet? You can't talk in circles without talking. But Blossom, on the other hand, hardcore circle talker, makes 1,000,000 points with 0 content in them points. She just likes to hear herself talk, I think.
what we're saying.
How could it be a circle when I haven't answered the question at all? Because
Exactly.
You keep speaking? I'm sure you guys are very proud that you can enter a building and work with 25 people at a time. I access millions
Oh,
every
that is
month,
not
babe.
what
That's what I
nonprofit
do.
work is.
You know, you
You
can.
are
It's really
so
disappointing that you would
disconnected
ever
from that.
equate
This is
community
disappointing,
services.
actually. This is disappointing, actually.
This is
This is disappointing. Well, that was Blair. I think he said it. They're both saying. I think this. I see. The thing is, it's not even like these two could box because I'm pretty sure Blossom would destroy Blair because Blair's actually feminine and Blossom looks like a linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. Again, I think that Blair is just straight up whooping this whole entire panel except for the other conservative girls. So I think that they're just letting Blair handle all the light work.
It's disappointing that you would disrespect all of the people that are in community service and all of these social workers that actually do help trans people.
What did she say that was disrespectful, though? This is the number one thing why people dislike lefties. This guy just said you're disrespecting social workers when all she said was, I am doing my own way of advocating for trans people. I say disrespectful stuff. That was not disrespectful.
And it's really disappointing that you guys are disrespecting what the fuck I do, right?
They are.
You said something about what is grassroots. That's the problem that I feel that some
Well,
trans
you're using a
influencers are
metaphor for
disconnected.
something that's
That is not a
professional.
They're gonna
metaphor.
speak in platitudes
that
the
is
whole
a
time. That's
tangible
what
That is a metaphor.
gonna do.
resource organization, because this is where y'all's privilege comes.
Grassroots. I gotta find out now. I got to find this out now.
Y'all don't.
Is grassroots a metaphor? The earliest origins of grassroots as a political metaphor are obscure. But it is. It's a political metaphor. So, yep, right here. Metaphor. This one goes to the nerdy guy in the red.
Need
My privilege?
services
My
from
content is a
trans-
resource.
If you do not need
First of
services
all,
from
ma'am, don't come from my
nonprofits
privilege.
that
Don't
are
come from my
trans-led,
privilege.
you have
I was raised by
privilege
drug
and you
addicts.
have
I have
access.
HIV.
I create the resources.
I would rather
I create
work
the
with
resources. My
detransitioners
content
than
is a
trans
resource.
people. So we're gonna work
Everybody's
with
just talking
detransitioners
over each
who
other at this
actually
point. It's
care.
hard to keep track of.
But we're not talking about military.
Oh my God.
Another one, but I'm gonna give you one more chance.
It's the condescension for me, you know.
I will take a step back and let other people have. An
I feel
opinion.
like.
Oh, well, that's so
like,
gracious of you,
Claire said, like,
Blossom,
when you wanna go into the
considering it's an
military, like,
open
they gotta, like,
forum.
check you out and like, are you fit to go into the military? Whatever. For that reason, I don't feel like a ban on trans people in the military is necessary, because I feel like who's ready to go to combat and who's ready to go in, like they'll get in. I think there are people who are like able to do that, maybe people who aren't. And I feel like that will be determined without just a ban across the board. And yeah.
So it wasn't actually a full ban, though. That's what people don't realize, okay? So
You can still enlist.
nobody got kicked out of the military. They didn't kick
Yeah.
a single person out of the military who came forward and had gender dysphoria. Two, it was actually easy. It's more open to serve under the ban than it was under Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
Okay? So you could actually be a
Yeah,
trans person.
you're just
present
totally
however you
destroying my
wanted off duty. You could
argument.
go to a ball in a dress and nobody cared, and they couldn't kick you out. And serving in the military, it's not a right. They can disqualify you for any reason, physical, anything. People get kicked
That's
out
true.
all the time because they can't pass PT tests.
Right.
And overseas, yeah, you don't necessarily have access to refrigerators for your testosterone or any of that other stuff. So if you're taking injections, it's a lot
I'm
different.
supposed to refrigerate it?
I don't know.
Well, that's
Don't
probably.
take
That's gonna
testosterone.
melt in the Middle East.
Well, now we know why he's so scrawny. His testosterone is not being refrigerated. Let this be a lesson to you, many folks in America. Refrigerate your testosterone, or you will end up like the scrawny guy in red.
Son, believe
Hormones
that.
are
That
not always-
estradiol is gonna be
Female
blue
hormones
goo.
are not always refrigerated. Let's just make that clear.
Again, Blossom coming in out of left field with absolutely nothing that benefits the conversation. They were talking about testosterone, not female estrogen. Blossom, how do you even get on these panels? I don't get it. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
My concern would be that, like,
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know what the hell she just said.
who's joining the military not to serve in the country, but only to get the cheaper drugs and
Hello.
the paid-for surgery. And I don't want that trans person
Okay,
defending
who's
our
joining the
country.
military
It's a good
because they
point.
got a woman pregnant and they just need to pay their bills. There's so
I
many
don't want
different
that.
reasons.
Well, actually, that's a good point. Pretty much all of the Revolutionary War was fought by farmers who were trying to just make sure that they kept their land. And a lot of them ended up losing their land to the banks because the government didn't pay. There was almost like a whole mutiny right after the Revolutionary War.
That
Reasons why
person
people
either,
join the
because I
military.
want
And also
dedicated
there
people.
are easier
I want
ways to get
dedicated people that want to defend the country that I live in.
There are
and
easier
protect
ways to get drugs.
us.
There are easier ways to get drugs and to join
Yeah, there are. Kensington and Philadelphia, you can get any drug you want. It's like the Walmart of open air drug trade. You're welcome.
the military. That's a big commitment to
Let's
get
just
drugs.
put it this
to-
way.
to-
There are
to
far
do it
less
for high school too,
debilitating
or
things that will
education.
disqualify you from access to the military than trans. And if you
Yeah.
want to put it on a scale, trans is one of those things that for a lot of people is quite debilitating, whether it's mentally, physically,
Yeah,
whatever.
makes
if you
sense.
Have, you know, social anxiety, if you have depression, any of these things
Yeah, they don't want depressed people inside the military. That is 100% true. Blair is just dropping nothing but fact bombs on these people.
that are less mentally taxing than gender
She's owning the liberals.
dysphoria, all
Or as Obama says, let's own the libs.
those things, then why is it that we should have like a go around because we're trans? I go with what the generals say. I go with what the people at the top say. This is what is the most effective way to have our military.
Just not General Milley.
I just really
Just
hope
not
that the
General
people
Milley.
at the
No,
top
not
that you're-
him. You know what I mean?
just
It's
really hope
levels
that
to
the
that,
people-
too.
I just really hope that the people at the top that you're referring to aren't transphobic, because let's be clear of the isms that are in the military.
we live in
That is like a, I hope that the people at the top aren't transphobic. Like, that's not a fact. That's just an opinion. And granted, like, Jubilee's all about opinions, but it has nothing to do with the actual topic. Blossom. Like, I think they kept a lot of Blossom's commentary in just because so people would be like, what the hell is this chick talking about?
In
A lot of
America,
us face-
people are allowed
Excuse me,
to
I'm
be.
speaking. Do not interrupt
Ooh.
a black trans woman when she's speaking.
You've been
Oh my God, she went there. Do not interrupt a black trans woman while she's speaking. Let that be a lesson to you, all you people at home. This message was brought to you by Pfizer. I'm just kidding. I don't have a sponsorship, and I definitely don't have one by Pfizer. I'd be in a real studio, not in my bedroom.
Let's be
Interrupted
very
me
clear.
hella
When it comes to
times.
when
Hella
it comes
times.
to isms,
Did the interrupter just
again,
say
if you
use
are
her
black,
skin tone
if
to
you
say you
are
couldn't
black,
interrupt her?
if you are black and
That's
trans
amazing.
and you want to go into the military, I am quite sure that my experience would not look the same as y'all's. And if we can't,
Well, no one's does. Like, a fighter pilot's experience in the service doesn't look anything like a guy who drives a tank. Like, they're completely different. Like, first off, let's just get one thing clear. Nobody's experience doing anything is the same as anybody else. My experience waking up is different than your experience at home today. You know, did you wake up with a raging heart on? I did. It's TMI. I'm sorry for that.
wake that up, then we're really being complicit.
They don't look at your race.
I don't think your
But you-
skin tone makes any difference.
Well,
As somebody,
yes, it does. Well,
as
I'm
somebody,
sorry.
no, as somebody who's
But it
serving in the
doesn't.
For
military,
you to
as
tell a
somebody
black
who,
person
no,
that
as,
is so
as somebody who's serving,
problematic. For you to
So why
tell
do
a
you have
person
to
of
put
color
black in
here,
front of it?
because I am. This is my experience, and this is.
That's all I got. You don't understand. We're all, like, I can't pull the trans card on you guys because you're all trans except for Alexander here, but he's the only one being nice to me, so I can't say nothing. So I have to go with the black race. Let me have it. That's all I got.
My reality. First of all,
has nothing
that
to
is
do with
so
your transness,
disrespectful
though.
to tell a person
I'm gonna
of
have an
color, a
aneurysm.
black person, how they should feel. How dare you sit up there
Okay,
and
well,
say
no,
that?
it's disrespectful.
Look, oh my God, dude, this is like, I think I'm losing brain cells listening to Blossom here. Like, what does her race have anything to do? It's a trans topic. Being black, like, there's tons of African Americans in the military. There's tons of African Americans as cops. They're awesome. Like, go look at some of the World War II Medal of Honor stuff. Like, one of them's a black man, and it was awesome. Like, the Tuskegee Airmen. Absolute killer pilots. They were great. Black people fought in the Revolutionary War. Most of them fought against us, though, because, you know, the British promised them freedom from slavery and took a lot of them, actually, to Britain. That's why British have so many African Americans over there. So that's a little fact for you. So I totally understand why they would fight against America, because I would be fighting too if I was enslaved. This is a non-topic here. Look, this absolutely has nothing to do with the topic. This is Blossom basically just standing up and saying, listen, this is why I'm different than all of you, and this is why I'm better. Basically, like, you do not know my plight. I will find victimhood in something that I say today. You believe that. You can't understand me and my plight because of the way that I look. That is, like, racist as hell.
Somebody
No,
who's
a white
hold on
person
just
You
a second. Let me
screamed
finish
at
my
him,
point.
and you
I did not
just
scream
yes,
at a
you
point.
did.
No,
you're
you
being
come
disrespectful.
back.
I did not scream at anybody. I did not scream. Damn it. I'm screaming that I'm not screaming. Give me a break. Stop bringing this girl on, Jubilee. She makes everybody dumber. It's an embarrassment. Has nothing to do with the fact that she's black. Because I watched black conservatives versus white liberals, and the black conservatives own them. So it has absolutely nothing to do with race. This is just her desperately looking for a reason to be a victim.
Rewind the tape.
You wanted me here, and I'm
You
here.
screamed.
So what you
Rewind
going
the
to do?
tape, that was good.
You wanted me here, so I'm here.
Replay.
You
Right,
in particular.
so
just want you to calm down and speak like
Me
a
in
white person.
particular, what are you talking about?
Wait, did Blair ask for Blossom to be on the panel? I don't think she probably did. Like, I feel like Blossom is kind of creating this whole thing in her head, like that Blair's her rival, when Blair's like up here and Blossom, like, I don't know, she's probably down like on near the floor somewhere.
My fault that y'all don't understand respect.
You're
Oh
interrupting
my God.
Can you please stop?
Okay.
We're good.
You need to calm down.
No, you do,
Change
honey.
the rules.
My God, someone get a Xanax for her.
Oh, because trust me, it sounds like Blossom already took plenty of Xanax before she walked into this.
Keep it cute, girl. Keep it real cute.
Oh,
Your
that's
bodyguard's
inappropriate,
outside,
but the rest
keep
of
it
shit
real
isn't.
cute,
Okay.
ma'am.
The rules are you cannot speak.
Wow, did Blossom just threaten Blair with violence? Your bodyguard's outside, but keep it cute. Like, keep it cute or I'm going to beat you. Like, that is how you know you're getting your behind kicked in a debate, is when you have to threaten violence. Because that means you have nothing left. Your words are hollow. You have nothing but to threaten physical violence. It's disgusting. Disgusting behavior. Blossom's embarrassing. I actually think one of the comments on this video is, yeah, there's me. Blair's a straight savage. As a black trans woman, we don't claim her. Right here. As a black trans woman, we don't claim her. Yeah, look, she's just embarrassing herself.
When somebody else is speaking.
Fair.
Okay? We haven't found a middle ground. That's okay.
I think we did.
Okay?
I feel like there was a little bit
Yeah,
mixed in there.
Yeah, I agree with what y'all were saying. It wasn't really like.
Blossom, are you living on planet Venus? You didn't agree with a single thing anybody said. In fact, half of the points you made weren't even about the topic at hand. You were talking about yourself the whole time.
I thought it was great.
So
or
imagine
whatever,
when we
it's competitive.
disagree. That'll be fun.
I feel
Blair.
like it was really interesting hearing your perspective about being in the military, and I don't know if there's really like a true middle ground found, but I feel like I have like a better understanding of kind of where you're coming from with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of points make sense, and it's also an issue that is hard to get a definitive answer. And
Look at
agreement.
Sasha coming in with a
Everybody
little bit of
doesn't have the
peace.
same struggle.
You just said that, well, no, she did say that everybody's struggle is different, but everybody has some kind of struggle. Like, she's like pulling back now because I think she feels like she might have embarrassed herself, which is probably the first self-aware thing that Blossom's done since the beginning of this.
And that does include in the military. Some people in our community have to go through much more extremes than others. And
Well, she should have started off with this instead of being like, I'm black, you don't understand what I'm saying. Like, if she started with this would actually be somewhat of a coherent statement. But instead, she just started off with, I am so upset, I'm black and I'm trans. You don't understand what I'm saying, what I go through day to day.
so for me, my question becomes, how are they being taken care of? Especially when a trans person comes out in the military. Yeah, we have these things enacted, but that doesn't mean that in reality and in physical time that they're being treated under what is in the law that's supposed to protect them. So that's where I'm coming from or whatever, because reality and what's on paper are two different things.
But they are. So this is, again, the culture of the military. This is a debate that we have as civilians that the military doesn't have. Okay, just
Yeah, I guarantee you there's no Marines sitting there debating this topic. Unless they're watching this video, in which case I'd love to hear what they have to say, but I'm pretty sure they could care less.
plain and simple. If you can do your job, nobody cares who you are, what you do, what your extracurricular activities outside of the military are. All they care is that they can count on the person to the left and right of them. And again, like I said before, in the very beginning, if you can't deploy and you can't go do your job, then there's really not a big reason for you to be there.
Yeah, no reason
to
at all.
agree with your point, I'm not in the military, nor am I a military general, but I trust that military.
What if he was like, actually, I am a military general, and he just like rips off his beard, and I don't know why he'd rip off his beard. He's like, but it turns out I'm a 5-star general, and I've been conning you guys undercover ball style this whole entire time.
Generals know how to get their troops deployment ready, and if someone is able to go through all the rigorous steps, take out the trans, but they've been able to meet medical, health, all of the hoops that need to be met, I don't see any reason to take away someone's opportunity to serve this country and to be proud of serving this country, because being American is something to be proud of.
Yeah, and like
Finally, the first
trans ban
thing
didn't
that I
actually
agree
do
with
like I
said by
before.
that guy.
You just couldn't go actually like take hormones and transition while you were in, and it was a lot different because I served in 2010 to 2011 before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, so I know what it was like before that as well.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. So there's some middle ground.
There's some middle ground there. Let's go, people.
It only took a couple physical threats for them to finally agree on something. Awesome. Well, Blossom's still out in left field chasing butterflies.
Schools should
I brush.
include
Did you hear what Blair said? She goes, "I brush my hair of haters." Oh, they put the. I didn't realize they put the results up Should schools should include trans conversation in sex ed? That's a no for me. Is it okay for minors to get top surgery? Hells to the effing no, 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 no. Look, everybody, 79% say no. It's not okay. Easy one for me. If you were 12 years old, would you want a tattoo? A big tattoo right across your chest? I bet you say no. And you know why you say no? Because at 12 years old, we'd all have like Leonardo of the Ninja Turtles on our chest, or we'd have a princess, or hopefully no swastikas. That'd be weird. A 12-year-old with a swastika. Kids aren't self-aware or mature enough to make life-changing decisions at that age. That's really all it comes down to right there.
Surgery.
Really?
You guys waited on that?
That's pretty vile.
That is disgusting. 110%. The people who are sitting down right now, I know they're doing it because of their talking points, but first off, Alexander, why you didn't even get any surgery, so why are you going to tell a kid to go get surgery? Like these people sitting down right now, absolutely disgusting. That's my opinion. Everybody's right to their own opinions. Advocating for children to get life-changing surgery, I just can't get down with that.
I feel like the vibe is.
Can't wait to hear this.
I like, as someone who had top surgery and went on hormones, like it's a very emotionally intense experience. I think in terms of like.
Yeah, when did you get it?
Getting surgery, like the reason why I'm not like no to that is because I feel like maybe someone's like 17 or something. I honestly.
Okay, so he's only sitting down for the exception. Like 17's close enough in his opinion. 17's not even close enough for me. I feel like you should have to wait until you're 21. Like if you're not responsible enough to drink alcohol, you shouldn't be responsible enough to take a life-changing decision and apply it to your life. I'm sorry.
I feel like it is a really intense surgery, but I feel like if somebody's like 17 or like late 16 and like feels like it's right for them, I mean, like people are really different. I know for me, like top surgery when I was like 16 would have been like so good, and it would have literally like saved my spinal cord from like binding all the time. That's why I'm like, yeah, like I feel like in instances like it can make sense.
So I'm not a trans man, so I don't have the experience or whatnot, but I do think that it has to be done safely. There is a process when it comes to having these types of gender-affirming surgeries.
Okay, again, nothing to do with the topic at hand. Surgery should have to be done safely. Like Captain Basic right here.
You know what I'm saying? Talking with your parents and then going to endocrinologists and going through therapy to make sure this is right for you. People have a choice to their autonomy.
You should have to wait at least 1 year from when you start. If you are, again, even then no, because kids go through phases. You'll see when the conservatives sit down just how disgusting the pharmaceutical companies and the medical doctors that work on this stuff are. But that is not how it goes, because there's money to be made, and when there's money to be made, people make dumb decisions, because if it's not going to affect their life but fill their wallet, they'll do it.
Now I know that everybody does not, but those that do or whatnot should choose with the right medical education.
Yeah.
They should choose with safety and with full understanding of what is a benefit and what may not be a benefit.
I agree with a caveat that there does need to be some sort of process, which there is, by the way, in place.
There's not. You're going to find that out very shortly. There's
Yes,
not.
Things happen because, again, as I said earlier, this is a big world.
First off, why is Alexander getting an opinion on this? He's not even a real tranny. He's binary dude, non-binary dude. Like, he didn't get no surgery done.
But to, again, negate people the ability to walk through a door that you have walked through, I'm going to say this again, and then close it behind you, is a little bit of a slap in the face for any.
You're going to see this guy repeat this same sentiment. So if I walk through a door, right, and I find out that on the other side of that door is a booby trap, and that booby trap is going to maim you terribly, and I close that door and lock it so that nobody else comes through and finds out that there's a booby trap on the other side of that door to keep them safe, that is not the same as what this guy's saying. Like, if there's so many detransitioners, and like back in the day, there was hardly any, because the only people doing it were like people who are dedicated to this actual idea. But there's so many detransitioners now giving their story because culture is pushing turning trans as like a fad. And it's not a fad. It's a life-changing decision that you cannot come back from.
Anybody who's seeking transition.
Yeah.
And as somebody who has experienced top surgery and also waited quite a bit of time,
Yeah,
a
but
lot of
when did
severe
you do
damage
that?
actually was created to my rib cage that my wife, who is half my size,
Did you do it
actually
when
has
you were
the
12? I
same
bet you
size,
didn't.
rib cage in the back as mine. And these are permanent damage to my body because I binded for about 8 years, and there's even still issues that I have with breathing and certain issues that I face that, you know, unfortunately, if I had that surgery a lot earlier, I would have a better posture. I'd have a lot of pain that is not within my body that I have to deal with on a daily basis, while simultaneously the idea that
Well, it sounds like this guy could have just got away with a breast reduction. Like, women get breast reductions all the time. That's different than cutting your boobs off completely. You know, it's not the same.
you know, I get maybe under 16 top surgery would be something that would possibly even make me a little uncomfortable, but I also
Well, then why are you sitting down, dude? This is, you know, that this question's designed for 12 and 14-year-olds or 11-year-olds or tomboys, you know?
know that I was homeless at 16, paying my own rent, and left my home at 16 and had to live my life as an adult very early. So I was able to make those
So he left, did he get kicked out or did he leave his home? Because that's two different things. If you leave your home at 16, then that was a choice, unless he was in an abusive situation, which he probably should have went to like you know, Child Protective Services.
decisions for myself, but I think it's weird that others can't seem to see that I could make a medical decision for myself when I had to physically take care of myself. And I look at some of these younger kids, and there's a sense of jealousy there and excitement for them at the same time because they now have access to memories and being in the space and being in a comfortable body that, you know, I had a lot of isolation growing up in my childhood because I didn't feel comfortable to present in a female space or a male space. I was isolated constantly from school, from the outside world, from my family. And my transition, my top surgery has done nothing but take physical pain off my body, especially with as large chested as I was and having to bind for as many years as I did.
I'm not familiar with what binding is. I assume
don't
it's
think
something
any
that
minor
has
should
to
be
do
having
with your
life-altering elective surgery
spinal
or
cord.
life-altering elective medicalization, period.
Yeah, Sarah,
And
drop some mileage
so
on them.
when I work on bills across the country that do ban this for minors, there's a couple things I point out. I point out that I don't think a 16-year-old female who wants breast implants should be able to get that.
I agree there.
When we look at what we allow,
Like an enhancement, like at 16, I'm fairly sure your boobs aren't all the way like mature. I feel like you don't mature as an adult until you're like 25. I feel like that's where your body is like, okay, this is what you got to work with. You know, deal with it. Breast reduction's different though. Breast reduction, if it's hurting your back, giving you back pain, it makes sense to have your breasts reduced. But getting, breast implant, no.
allow minors to do, like surgeries and stuff like that, they're not life-saving. They're not, if you don't get it, you're not going to die. It's not like getting, like, having appendicitis and having to get your appendix removed or anything like that. It's elective.
Yes.
I think that's the key point here.
It's elective.
My thing about surgery, I'm actually
It's elective. Boogie, woogie, woogie. Sorry, I just had to do that.
vehemently against surgery, like all of it, top surgery, bottom surgery, all of it, particularly because you need your genitals.
Yeah, you do.
Like, it's just that simple. You know, you have these people now who have non-functioning fake penises and vaginas that, you know, you've had issues like, for instance, Richie had where like your urethra folds in half and then you can't pee no more.
This is about
Oh, are you against top surgery too? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just
Well, top surgery, bottom surgery. I mean, he said, I don't believe in top surgery or bottom surgery. So he's explaining why he thinks that is. You know, like if a kid's gonna get their boobs cut off, chances are they're more open to the idea of, you know, having something, either a nip and a tuck down there. You know, so I don't think that that shouldn't disqualify what he's saying.
or just surgery in general. I don't think that that's necessarily like you said, it's not like you have appendicitis. It's not like you've got like a bone spur. It's, you know, like you don't.
I disagree with
not
that because I
having
was in
surgery-
physical pain, and the moment that I got that top surgery, the pain was
Well,
alleviated.
that means you needed a breast reduction, my friend.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, it's just
No,
binding, dude.
that's from
Binding goes
in
crazy.
general, it
I mean, I
causes
binded
some
for 8
issues.
years. I know, like it
I know,
sucks,
but like if you just keep binding.
Hang on, we gotta find out what binding means. Hang on, now I gotta find out what this is. What is binding trans? Binding involves the use of tight-fitting sports bras, shirts, ace bandages, or specifically made binder to provide a flat chest contour. In some people with larger breasts, multiple garments may be used and breathing may be restricted. Okay, so basically, it's like a sports bra, it's something to hold your boobies down. Okay, cool. Now we know what they're talking about. You may continue.
Like, honestly, like my ribs are like, I'm like, ew, I hate my ribs. Like they're all like messed up.
Is that an
get your
issue
body
with
type.
safety of binding though? I'm actually curious.
Yeah,
about
like
this.
honestly,
Is the
but
safety
the
of,
thing is
of
too,
how they
like
teach you to
I
bind?
think it comes with like the size of your chest. So like I had a big chest, so like
Same.
I had it was the only way. You know what I mean?
Same.
And I did try and like bind like safely, and I did buy like reputable like binder brands, but it is a lot when you're doing it for a really long time
I
and
used to
also
wear it for
like
3 days.
Yeah.
I know, me too. Like,
And
and
it
that's
seems
what,
like it
you're
would
supposed
hurt.
to,
Was
but,
was
like-
your doctor telling you that that's not safe? Because you're not even supposed to wear
Yeah,
what,
of
24
course.
hours.
My doctor's
straight,
old
right?
school.
Yeah.
You know.
My doctor's
know,
old
and I had
school.
to
He
check
still
my
gives me
dose through, like-
Coca-Cola with heroin in it.
very for top surgery and testosterone. Like I had to go through like a really big process, and I think that's my thing. Is like instead of an age thing, I think there's like there should be a process. You should have to like live as that gender and be seeking care and be having like a therapist for long term and a psychiatrist for long term and an endocrinologist for long term, and like it's really like specific to the person, and I think would be like really rare anyway. But that's just my stance.
That I agree with to an extent.
This is definitely the prompt that I am the most passionate about because I think there are few things more vile, more irresponsible, more, dangerous than saying a child can consent to permanently removing a body part that
True.
serves an extremely important function.
Yep.
Detransitioners all over the country can never breastfeed their children if they can even have them, because if they did other things, that can stop them from having kids at all, right? The idea that a child can consent to a sex change, to gender affirming surgery, if you believe that, there's really nothing that you can believe they can't consent to.
I think this is a lot that the conservatives have big problems with, is when they're pushing kids to change their sex. It's like, why? Like, I totally understand what Blair's saying. Like, if you can consent to a kid reducing their breasts, then what else do you consent for this child to do? It's scary stuff.
Right? Because that's pretty extreme. That's permanent body modification under the best circumstances. So you want to move aside all the complications, all the things you can't do, the sterilization, not being able to feed your kids. You could even set that aside. Just the permanent body modification. I mean, you have to be so demented to believe that a child fully understands. I heard a few conversations about, well, if the child fully understands, they don't. They don't. Because
Yeah, exactly. Again, this goes back to my tattoo thing. Would you trust your 12-year-old child to get a tattoo they're going to be happy with when they're 25? I don't think so.
they're children.
I'm
That's like how
21
being a
and I still
child
Like a
don't
works.
understand.
17-year-old, like if a 17-year-old's like living as male for like 5
The
years.
prompt was
it's
about
like,
minors, and
Yeah, but a
12-year-olds
17-year-old is
are
a
getting top
minor.
surgery. So it's easy to say, well, if it's 17-year-olds, okay, well,
In my state, that's actually
there's a
legal
nuanced
age.
conversation about even 17-year-olds, I guess, because the age of consent
That was the creepiest thing ever. In my state, 17 is illegal.
in some places is lower, but that's not what's happening, right? It's 12-year-olds.
When we talk about minors, it's like, what age range are we really talking about here?
Anyone
because
under
the thing
18.
because the thing is, when we talk about detransitioners or whatnot, all I hear is a lot of regret, right? Regret that they got these surgeries, regret of the complications, regret, and that's fine. I'm not taking away anybody's experience because these things do happen. But let's also remember, again, there is a process. Now, I have a lot of empathy for those detransitioners that have gone through the process and they are suffering.
But
I
it's
do
not
have
just
empathy for
detrans
that.
people. It's
But
not
I'm
just
but
detrans
that's where
people.
I'm just talking about in the conversation for this particular conversation. And I understand what you're saying because you're absolutely right. There are more people.
Even
that are
among
doing that.
adults, we all
But-
do different things in our
but-
transition. Some of us
correct.
want bottoms, some of us don't. Some of us want tops, some of us don't.
I
So
understand,
you
but-
need a lot of time as an adult to figure.
I think at this point, Blair's just speaking over her because she doesn't like Blossom. Like, I think this is just tactical strategy. But I also think that Blair might be like, I can't let people listen to this.
Figure out what you want to do.
But see, the thing is, though, some adults don't even understand what they want to do.
Exactly.
So, that's the kind
So
of the
how can a
thing.
child?
But see,
Well said. And right there, we end the video. No, I'm kidding. We could. Honestly, like right there, that's the slam dunk of the conversation right there. Blair is just like, if most adults don't even know what they want to do, then how could you possibly expect a child to know?
The
I
children,
wanna touch
wait a
on
minute,
one
let's
thing
not,
you said.
let's
fucking
not
planet.
underestimate the power of these kids today, okay? They are very much more educated because they have much more resources and access than we did coming
Wow.
up. So let's be
So
very
they're
clear about
advanced
that.
and they can.
Yeah, so if a 12-year-old sees a rap video where they're carrying guns, this kid obviously is gonna think that it's a great idea to go carry guns. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, just because they can research it doesn't mean it's right for them. And honestly, I think that social media is actually more damaging to these kids than it is helpful. Because a lot of kids want to imitate adults. So if they see all these trainees getting all this attention and they want attention in their life, what's to stop them from going and cutting off their stuff just to get attention? Just be treated as a hero.
And when we
Consent.
talk
Who
about
else says that?
detransitioners, that was been the main topic here or whatnot, because we
But
want to
it's
bring
not now.
detransitioners in to the room, so there's a space. Thank you.
Did you get her point? Because I think my brain hurts. Blossom said a whole lot, and I don't really think that but at the same time, she didn't say anything. Like, she said a lot of words, I know that, but she didn't make any points.
To your point about the reason why I'm
They're like, Blossom, can you just shut up for a couple minutes, please? Thank you.
against it is because, like you said, the children need to go through the proper steps, the parents, the doctors. But in the state of California, if you, as a parent, tell your minor, no, you're not getting this, I'm not affirming your gender, I'm taking your kids away, and
Yeah, it's
California's
disgusting.
gonna raise
Shame
your
on you,
kids for
California.
So how's that?
Canada too.
That's not right.
We
And
also
shame
know
on you,
that,
Canada.
Like all those safeguards that you're talking about, they're not happening.
Yeah, that's
If my daughter came up to me and said, Dad, I wanna change my vajayjay into a penis, I'd be like, no. And if my state came and wanted to take her away for that, then I would probably sue the state. Like, that is sometimes my job as a parent is to guide my child into making the right decisions. Now, if my child was 20 and she came up to me and said that, I'd be like, honey, why don't you think about this for a little bit, and then if you still want to, in maybe a year or two, let's talk. But not at 9 or 12.
That's
They're
what I'm
not
saying.
happening at all.
California will
and we,
take your
we
kids.
we know because there was a whistleblower out of St. Louis, and this isn't some conservative whistleblower. She was married to a trans man, and she considers herself queer. So she blew the whistle and said that they had an in-house doctor. If you couldn't find a affirming therapist to sign off on the form, they would pencil whip it.
But do you believe that it should happen? Do you believe there should be a process when it comes to medical transition?
No,
We have to
there's no
stop-
right
so,
process for
yeah.
kids to hack
Oh
off
no,
their
I was
breasts.
asking her, honey. I'm sorry.
No,
I was
no.
asking
Well,
her.
I answered because I'm here in the room.
You were looking at Blair though when you asked that question. Like, come on.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like personally, like if we're talking about like a 12-year-old getting top surgery, like to me that's just like medical malpractice. Because I know for me, like to get top surgery, like I can only get it at 18 because my insurance covered at 18. But I had to start that process like long before. Like even hormones was a long process. So I think there's like an area of literal like medical malpractice because no like kid at that age should be getting that in my opinion because you do not know. But I do think there are instances where like a 16 or 17-year-old like could get it, and I don't know if that means like banning like below 16 or like whatever, but
So in the UK, it was the I can't remember what it was. It's the reason why they're shutting down the Tavistock clinic in the UK though, is because they found that when you start a child on hormone or on puberty blockers then hormones, it's basically a foregone conclusion that they're going to end up having surgery. It puts them on a path to it's a sunk cost fallacy.
I just, again, I don't understand this obsession with
Obsession.
other people's children.
It's about caring about kids.
I'm talking. Oh my God.
Oh my
It's-
God.
Together.
I have
See, Blair has zero tolerance for this person because, in her opinion, he shouldn't even be here because he's non-binary. He's not trans. Like, he didn't get no surgery. So as far as she's concerned, he shouldn't have anything to say, which is why I think she interrupts him. Does it make it right? No, but that's what I'm kind of gauging from the interaction between the two. But to answer his question, why do we care about people's kids? Because as adults, I mean, we care about children, and the last thing we want to see is children being hurt or making bad decisions, because that's just going to mess them up, and that's our children. I would hope that someone would speak up if something was going to go wrong with my daughter. You know, if something bad was happening to my daughter, I would hope that someone wouldn't just be like, "Oh no, I don't have time to deal with this child in trouble." We care about children as adults. Like that's why we care, you know, cuz we're people and we're compassionate, and for the most part I feel like people are good and people don't want to see people suffer. And we all know that age we're not equipped to make life-changing decisions. So that's why people care. To answer your question, Alexander.
Put together.
Yo, the obsession with the conservatives about other people's kids. If it is your child, it is your choice what you do with your kid.
I'll tell you why conservatives believe this, especially Christian conservatives, because the Bible tells you you are to preach the word of God, and if the word of God is to protect your children, then that's what they're going to do. That's why conservative cares about other people. And plus, they believe in the good of all. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's what I think anyway. I think the Bible is the big reason why conservatives care so much about other people. But it's funny because he's coming off like he doesn't care at all. Like, if you saw a kid homeless on the street, I guarantee you a conservative would be much more likely to go and try and help that kid faster than maybe a liberal would. Okay, that's a lie. That's a lie. I don't really believe that. My hope would be that anybody would help that kid.
Let's talk about someone who's at 16 and their level of consent. In the state of California, from my understanding, someone who's 16 can also drop out of high school, which would severely affect their life. And they have access to that decision if they want to, because say they want to get into the job market or whatever their reason is. But they have that option to make that choice at 16. I will agree with you that someone at 12, I'd be uncomfortable with somebody at 12 years old getting surgery completely, because there's still a lot of the world for them to learn about themselves, how to navigate it, et cetera, et cetera. But for us to have access to be able to drop out of high school if we wanted to, and make such a life-changing decision that could affect, you economically, socially, so many different ways. But then to say, you know what, you're not old enough to make this decision, for me, again, as somebody who was 16 and was in such a religious family and all the restrictions that I had, if I didn't have access to those things, I don't know if I would be here. And I've learned a lot through my transition and through my access. And I even grew up in the wild, wild west where everything was still on YouTube and we didn't really even have medical providers really even.
Why has my man got to bring YouTube into this? I'm going to tell you a huge reason why this comparison just does not work. You drop out of high school at 16, they have these things, they're called GEDs, right? You can go and get a GED and it's like you graduated high school. If you cut off your schlong, you can't put it back on. I think you can, but like not like after a while. Like you have to cut it off and not immediately put it back on, because if John Bobbitt and Lorraine Bobbitt taught us anything, it's that you can replace a penis. But if you cut off your schlong and then throw it in the trash, you're not gonna be able to go to the schlong store and buy another schlong. If you drop out of high school, you can go get a GED. And it's like, bam, you're set. You're back in the game. This is irreversible. Dropping out of high school is not irreversible. You know, so this comparison just for me doesn't make any sense.
Giving us guidance, and especially trans men. So I find it rather uncomfortable that we're able to make a 16-year-old be able to make that type of decision. An 18-year-old is allowed to go into service, but for some reason we can't give that same access to a kid to have that consciousness. Because I can tell you at 16, I knew who I was. I'm not at 12, not at...
I don't understand, like 18, nobody's saying an 18-year-old can't. I think what he meant to say was that, from what I've heard of this argument, is that when you're 18, you can go fight a war, but you can't drink a beer. So I think that's what he was trying to say, like in somewhat of a comparison, but he's really hell-bent on this 16. I'll tell you what, at 16, I'd still not want to be making life-altering decisions for myself. I just, at 16, I felt like a know-it-all. But I wasn't. I think that there's something that happened in these people's lives that made them either grow up really fast at 16 or something that makes it feel normal to them that like 16-year-old would be old enough to make a decision like this. But I don't. Actually, somebody made a really good point about this. Amala on Unapologetic. It's a great YouTube channel. She did a review of this video, and she said she feels like a lot of these people either had, SA in their life or some kind of abuse that maybe forced them to grow up early.
Not at 14, but 16.
And that's why they think this is normal.
Consciousness and experience that you've experienced in society, that you understand the pocket you fit in.
But normal 16-year-olds, I guarantee you, normal 16-year-olds do not have the capacity to make life-altering decisions. I can tell you that right now.
But just because other bad things happen doesn't mean that is okay. It's like, so just because they can drop out of school means they should be able to cut their breasts off?
Well said, Blair. Well said.
Non-binary should not be considered under the trans umbrella.
I really could care less because I'm not trans, so it doesn't affect me. But from a purely speculative, from a purely spectator point of view, I do not think that someone who wants to be a girl one day and then a boy the next day and doesn't get any surgery would not qualify as trans. Look at Blair. She's dancing her way up there.
Let's go, girl.
Look at Alexander's
I
like,
think
how
that the
dare you?
concept
I'm
of
so
a
much like you.
transgender umbrella is inherently an issue, right? Because when you're talking about something as nuanced, complex, full of social dynamics, medical dynamics, so many things to be considered. When you're talking about a transsexual, you should really be specific, right? And this entire concept actually of transgender is relatively new. Like, it came about in the 70s or 80s through queer theory, when originally it was about transsexuals, which was considered a medical diagnosis, which was a medical process, and it defined something very specific. So for me, when I hear that non-binary, which, if I'm to understand correctly, means
I think
that
androgynous.
right, and it means you know, identify somewhere in between male and female. That's not what a transsexual is.
The definition of a trans person is somebody whose body has been altered, or somebody who identifies as a different gender whose body has been altered via
Right.
hormones or surgery.
And there's
Yep, and right there, that's the meat and potatoes of it. Don't know what anybody else could possibly say coming to sit down that would make this point mute. I really don't. I mean, that's a mic drop moment for me right there.
two genders, so if you want to say, you know, you identify as a different gender, it has to be one of those two,
That's
which
the
would
big
make you a
argument, yeah.
transsexual if you're actually trans. I think it makes about as much sense as saying that bisexual is under the straight umbrella. It's like, no, that's a separate thing, and I think there's beauty in being separate things. There's beauty in having your own lanes, and my concern is there's so much, clearly, as we see today, really heated conversations about trans people that when you start adding in queer theory, non-binary, it just makes it muddy, and the people at home, hello, don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Here's the
I mean, she's right. Like, Blair probably doesn't have anything in common with a gay man. Blair White, the only thing she probably has in common with Dave Rubin is that they both have conservative perspectives. Other than that, though, that's pretty much where, you know, that ends. That compromise ends.
thing about a lot of
That's true.
the people who identify as non-binary, so to speak, when they do so, they typically don't medically transition.
Right.
And when you do so, that at that point, it's a costume.
Well,
Like-
it's gender nonconformity, right? And so we, as,
Because they
as
can
Blair's
take
saying-
this off. I can't take this off.
Yeah, as Blair's saying, we look at gender nonconformity, which used to be okay. You can wear what you want. You can present however you want, but it doesn't make you something different. You can't, you know, as Blair was saying, it comes out of queer theory, which is postmodern neo-Marxism, which means that there's no such thing as absolute truth. They don't believe there's truth, so it kind of erodes the structure of society. And it's actually really regressive in a lot of ways, because you end up getting it to where it's literally based off of stereotypes, which we've tried to for so long get rid of. Like, it's okay to be gender nonconforming male or gender nonconforming female, and that didn't make you non-binary. It didn't make you trans.
When I meet a trans person, right, like a trans woman, a trans man, there is an inherent camaraderie. Like when you mentioned, I can't take this off, part of me almost got a little bit emotional. I know it's hard to believe people think I have emotions, but I really do. And because I
She's a cold, hard biatch, bro.
saw you in that moment, and I said, you know what, we are similar in that way. We may be different in other ways. We don't know each other very well, but we have that. When I talk to or I'm around a non-binary person, it doesn't really, click. It doesn't connect because it is so different. So I think that's inherently, I should be able to see some semblance of my own issue within
own
that person, and
community.
I don't when they're non-binary at all.
And so I have no issue with non-binary people. I just don't think that we're the same.
Yeah, same.
And so when like I was saying before, like when our acceptance rate has completely been destroyed because these people are initiating violence in our name, they're gonna self-ID out of the category, and then we're gonna be the ones left holding the bag.
That's true. Like, if I was like, tomorrow I'm going to be a girl, I'm going to be Erica, and then I go and I burn down a school or something, and then the next day I go back to being Eric and never go back to being Erica, and I blame it all on Erica, then that's not going to look good for anybody who's in that community.
Yeah, it's just, if sex is a binary and you're neither of those, then you're not trans.
Hello.
Bam! If sex is a binary and you're not either of those, then you're not trans. Because I guarantee if you ask Blair, she's going to tell you she's a girl. If you ask Mr. Smithers over there, he's going to tell you he's a guy. And yet if you ask the other two, they're going to tell you they're a girl. What is Alexander going to tell you?
I think it would be really hard for a cis person to truly imagine what it's like to be trans and what it's
Sasha's not wrong. I have no idea what it would be like to be trans, but I'm not trying to pretend I know. I'm simply giving you the perspective of a third party that is watching this as a spectator.
like to live with that and be born that way. And I'm not non-binary, and so I really cannot picture what it would, because I'm a binary trans person. I can't imagine what it's like to be in between that. But just like how the cis person can't really truly understand that, it doesn't mean that it's not a thing and it's not real. And I really believe that we have like 85 years like on this earth, and like so many people spend so much time being like sad and uncomfortable in their bodies. And if we were just all comfortable, like if somebody like wants to go by a name and like dress a certain way and they are saying, this makes me so comfortable, this is what makes me happy, there is no reason they shouldn't do that. And my God, there is no reason why we should say, well, you're not a part of this because like this is us and like this is whatever. Because literally like we could all sit here and agree that like non-binary people are like not a part of the trans community or whatever, which is not my opinion. But we could like, that doesn't like change anything. Like there's a whole, we have a vast community. And I believe that non-binary people are a part of the community because I have so many shared experiences with so many non-binary people I know. We have very similar experiences in growing up with dysphoria, with transition, with anything, and nobody has to do anything. Nobody has to transition in a way they don't want to.
I mean, a lot of good points, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's all coming from emotion. Like, it doesn't change the fact that, you know, Alexander is not a trans person. He's non-binary. One day he's a guy, and the next day he's a girl. Blair wakes up every morning, she's a girl. You know, that's just the way that works. You know, so you can't flip-flop. Blair can't go back to being who she was before Blair. She's Blair now. And I think that's the major point that she's trying to make. Sasha's sentiment is nice. You know, we should be able to get along and all appreciate each other and however we want to express ourselves. But that doesn't change the fact that Alexander's still changing back and forth between sex. It's a very conservative opinion on a very liberal topic, if that makes any sense.
Transition. And yeah, like let's be a happy family. My God, let's all just be happy. That's my vibe.
Yeah, or fight the fight together.
Yeah, like let's do
honestly,
it. Like
We have
unite.
separate fights, though. That's the thing.
No, we
I don't
don't.
know if it-
No, they definitely have separate fights. Alexander going into the bathroom is what makes it hard for Blair to go into the bathroom. Does that make any sense? Like, Alexander going into the bathroom dressed like that is what makes people side-eye, or is what makes Blair feel uncomfortable about going to the bathroom. He clearly looks like a man dressed as a woman, as where Blair worked really hard to look like a woman so that she can comfortably go to the girls' room. So that they don't work together.
We're
is.
weakening our borders by creating this divide within our own community. This is so silly. Look, I actually understand like a lot of the points that are being made here from the conservative side because I grew up conservative. I voted when I was 18. I voted for fucking Bush. Damn, girl. Like I was conservative. Okay.
Bush 2025. Wait, 2024. No. Bush wasn't that bad of a president. Considering what we got in there now, he was fucking awesome.
We're the same age.
So it was not until my later age that I kind of decided, like, you know what, let me be more open to different types of communication, different types of people. I actually talked so much shit about pronouns. Like they, them, all this. I was like, what is this trash? When it first started really coming out, I did not agree with it. I was like, what is this? This is stupid. How can you be a them? Blah, 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 blah.
It's true. How can you be a them? You're one person. You can't be multiple people. Like, it's I understand why people call themselves them, but it doesn't make sense in the fact that, like, you're just one person. You know, you can't be a group of people.
You were
And
correct.
I did the whole thing, the grammatically. You're interrupting me.
He was waiting so long for him to be able to say something to her like that. He was like, I hope she says something so I could be like, shut up, girl.
You were correct. I'm
But
just saying. I'm agreeing with
They
you.
asked you not to comment, and you're commenting.
Look, she's like, don't you agree with me? Don't you agree with me? I'm supposed to hate you, Blair. Don't you agree with me?
So if you could stop, that would be great. Thank you.
Wow, that was disgusting behavior right there. Like, that does not make that guy look good at all. Like, that's just catty BS, like the immaturity.
So anyway, as I was saying, you know, so I changed my mind because I got to spend time around other people who were non-binary, who were non-conforming, and I got to speak with them and I got to experience their life and their experiences. And then I realized myself, I'm like, shit, maybe this is what I've been experiencing my whole life, only because I was exposed to it.
Yeah, so basically he's saying that he went out, found a group of people he felt accepted in, and then just adopted their behaviors, which is exactly what conservatives are afraid of. You see on TV people celebrating transsexuals or trannies or gay people, or well, actually, poor gay people don't even get celebrated anymore. Like, they're not gay enough for even the lefties. How many times do you see people celebrating? Who's that weird guy on TikTok? Dylan Mulvaney. Yeah. People celebrating them. You don't think that someone looking for clout's like, oh, if I dress like Dylan Mulvaney, my TikTok numbers are surely to go up. Are you craving the right acceptance? I wonder if Alex would have benefited better from trying to dig deep and find out, like, if he could find a way to accept who he was when he was born, if he put that much effort into that. Now, I'm not saying it didn't matter, but Alex was clearly exposed to transgenderism and that community, and he liked that community, which is fine. Which, did he only realize that he wanted to change after he saw them, or was it like, I guess what I'm trying to say, did he organically want to change, or did he only change to fit in? That's really where my concern is.
If I would have never been exposed to it, I would have never known that this could have been my experience.
Oh, and then he just answered himself right there. Yeah, so he probably would still be the same guy had he not been exposed to the LGBTQ, which I think is everything the conservatives are worried about with the school teaching kids, that kind of stuff.
And I would have lived the rest of my life as a different person, as somebody who I'm not. And
well, he would have been that person if he didn't change. I'm not fully understanding like what he's saying here. Like, he's basically saying, I was influenced to change. I was influenced to change. Are you picking up on that? I was influenced to change. That is the big problem here. Blair is clearly a woman. Alexander is clearly confused. There's a difference here.
And it's funny that you keep talking, that some people keep talking about, oh, you need to go through HRT, you need to have surgeries in order to be trans. That is all garbage.
Another thing I never said. It's just so crazy.
Again,
I did.
you're still interrupting me while I'm talking. This is the second time now.
You're addressing me.
This
And
is
Yeah.
the second time now.
if you can claim someone said something they didn't say, they should be able to correct you in the moment.
Yeah, this is a debate. Like, if in a presidential debate, if someone addresses one of the other candidates, that candidate's allowed to react. So you can't say, don't talk to me, if you are clearly pointing out something that that person said that they didn't say, which I didn't hear Blair say that.
Feel good now that you said what you needed to say?
I
Ooh,
feel
it's getting
fine.
chippy.
Wonderful.
I'm sitting pretty. I'm fine.
So, I mean, sometimes it's like the power that needs to hold me back.
I mean, you're
because
appropriating a medical condition. That's what you're really doing.
I exist. I am proof that non-binary people exist and that it is a thing.
She never said they didn't exist, though. She just simply said they're not trans. That's a huge difference. Like, nobody ever said that non-binary people don't exist. Like, I know that a lot of conservatives will say that it's not a real thing. You can't go from being a girl to a boy. If you wake up and you got a schlong, then chances are you're a boy. Blair simply just said that she wouldn't qualify him as a trans person because he goes back and forth between guy and girl. And I think that that's a valid argument.
And because I'm sitting right here in front of all of you, I'm a real person. This is my experience, just as yours is the trans experience. That as a trans woman, as a trans man, or as whatever. But I'm not here to belittle your experience or to tell you that you don't exist. And that's the difference between you and I, that you're trying to cancel you. And when I say you, I'm talking about conservatives. And maybe it is you. You're part of the thing. You're part of the thing.
Here's where I get to interject because there's a lot of things said about
Stop
me.
addressing her and just talk to everybody.
But what is your dysphoria?
Well, there was some things. Okay. So another complete.
This was a hard one for the producers to keep on their wraps, but I'm sure they were probably like, we got some good material here.
I don't want to say the word lie, but I guess that's what it is about what I've said here, right? I never said you don't exist. So we can add that to the long list of things
she
that I've
didn't.
said. I've said that I didn't. We know you exist.
It's
You're
a very
you're not
liberal thing to
fictitious,
do.
Right? My point is, you're different than me, and I don't even think you deny that, but yet when I say it, it's an issue, right? The same way
They are. Look at Alex, and then look at Blair. Tell me they're the same. You can't, because they're not.
that he said he can't take that off. You can, right? It's different. At the very least, it's different. And when we have a community that there are so many categories, demi-girl, demi-boy, astrosexual, all this shit, but y'all can't fathom that maybe that would be a different category than what I am when we have such different, as you keep saying, and everyone keeps saying, experiences? It doesn't make sense. A bisexual is different than a gay man.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? I just actually want to ask you a question. What is your dysphoria, though? Because gender dysphoria, or sex dysphoria, as I would rather call it, is an uncomfortability between my secondary sex characteristics, not just what I wear on a daily basis, because masculinity and femininity doesn't have anything to do with being trans.
Oh,
that's
Sarah
not true.
dropping bombs.
But that is not true.
Truth
You
bombs.
can have dysphoria without having to be dysphoric about your sex parts.
But what is your
you
dysphoria?
can have
What is
dysphoria
what is
about
your
anything.
dysphoria?
Straight cis women have dysphoria about their breasts all the time. They get breast augmentation.
not dysphoria.
That doesn't.
I am non-binary, and I feel like I'm being attacked. You guys just don't like me because I look so much better than you. That's what I feel like Alex is like right now.
That doesn't mean that I'm not dysphoric about certain things. That doesn't mean that. And you don't know my life. You're not in my life
Well, that's
daily.
why I asked you a question.
You don't know what
I
I
cannot-
experience, the different things that I experience personally.
I cannot believe that I grew up as, this 5-year-old little kid experiencing just crippling gender dysphoria, like horrible thoughts, struggled so much my entire life to be sitting in this room and you're explaining to her what dysphoria is.
I have my experience.
Yeah, like Alex just said that he lived his whole life as a normal person and then met some people who opened his eyes to a different lifestyle. So he clearly wasn't gender dysphoric up until then. I mean, he might have been. He might have had a little bit. He might have felt like something was missing in his life. But Blair, 110%, you can see just her mannerisms, the way she speaks. She is a woman. You can't tell me that Blair was not meant to be a woman. Like 110% Blair was meant to be a woman. Alex, on the other hand, still got the 5 o'clock shadow, but switches back and forth between boy and girl. That's not the same, so like I feel like Blair is absolutely right here. Like he should not be explaining to her what gender dysphoria is. Although Sarah did ask him to explain his gender dysphoria. So it's I think that it might be getting a little chippy at this point just because these people don't like one another. I mean, he was asked the question, so at least that much is on Alex's side.
It doesn't mean that I didn't have crippling.
You got a different
It doesn't
experience.
mean
you
that
got a
I
different
myself-
experience.
We all have a different. We all have a
We all have
different.
different
What
experiences.
makes us different?
I know, but we're all both not
It's okay,
Different
y'all.
things. That's it. It's that simple.
We don't identify as our gender at birth.
Obviously, I'm not a non-binary person, so I can't speak for non-binary people, but I can talk
But I am going to talk about Burger King because that's what I do. I talk about stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're really talking about.
about what I've been taught by non-binary people. From what I understand, when it comes to some non-binary people, sometimes they have to go into the gender binary for safety reasons, depending on the environment that they're in. A non-binary person stepping into this world and dismissing the gender norms of what people think a man and a woman is supposed to be like is so powerful. If you don't want to be mutable to the times of the expansion of the trans and non-binary experience, then just say that. I would rather you just say that you are not willing to move forward, learn the new terminology, learn the new
At this point, it's just so hard to keep up with the terminology because there's so many new things coming out every day. It's like impossible. There's all what is a zim? Like, how am I supposed to know what that is? Like, I'm just a dude, I'm just a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude. You know what I'm saying?
pronouns that come with the trans umbrella and the trans experience for the most part. And also, I'm sorry, one more thing.
One more thing, I didn't get enough time. I've been quiet for a little bit, and I need to get my cloud out. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get them followers up.
And also, too, there are non-binary people who have different sexual orientations. Let's also name that, too. There are so many layers of nuance that we could really get to when it comes down to the root of what being non-binary is.
But what's the def?
Yeah, but that wasn't the question at all, Blossom. Like, what are you even talking about, woman? You make no sense. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like you're saying words. They don't mean anything. Like, what is the definition of non-binary? What is the definition of non-binary? It's a person who is a girl one day and a boy the next day. I solved it for you. Like they're gender fluid. But a gender fluid person is not a trans person. There are two different things. A trans person is someone who started out as a man and then became a woman, or a woman who became a man. It's not somebody who flip-flops back and forth. That goes back to the conversation of I can't take this off. Like, I'm going to wake up today, I was a man. I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I was a man. God willing, Friday I'll wake up, I'll still be a man. Alex, on the other hand, just flip-flops back and forth.
definition.
That doesn't make them trans.
My big thing when it comes to, I agree with a lot of the things that you just said. I actually love you. I adore you.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you.
But
He's just afraid he's gonna get his ass beat.
here's the thing, right?
She already threatened Blair.
That's not the prompt. The
He's
prompt
like half the
was, "Is it
size."
different?" And it is. Again,
Or
when
he's
I
trying
go
to get
out,
laid.
I can't like take my beard off, girl. It's not coming off.
Right.
What beard?
Unfortunately,
He don't got a
I have
beard.
extra facial hair despite being a guy. Like
Real.
it. Yeah. Like I can't.
I like my
go and
facial hair.
reshape my body.
Most men like
I
their
can't
facial
go
hair.
And shave my Adam's apple down. I've been on this since I was 15. What if it had gone wrong?
So I have an interesting experience with non-binary myself, as someone who has presented as a
No offense, Shane, but you are a snooze fest, so I'm just going to kind of fast forward through your... let's just go to the next one. Doctors are manipulating trans medical care. Yes, 110% they are. And you want to know why? Because of the money. The money. You know how much money it costs to change, to transition? It costs a lot. And those doctors are like, cha-ching, boy. You want me to cut off your schlong? I will. Which is a direct violation of the Hippocratic Oath. And I can't believe more people voted no. They know for a fact that doctors are doing this. And they still, well, I feel like a lot of lefties watch Jubilee. A lot of conservatives comment on it and make videos like this. So these are all just my opinions. They could be right, they could be wrong, but I tend to agree with a lot of what Blair says. And, I think that it's just important for us all to share our opinions so we can all understand each other better. I love learning about this stuff. I love hearing from the liberal trans community because I personally think that it's important to get different perspectives on things. Do I think they're right? No. I don't think Sasha might make some good points about everybody getting along. But for the most part, I don't feel like a lot of them have given anything reasonable here as to changing anybody's mind for anything. As where the conservatives seem like they really have like their receipts and they're backing themselves up with, facts that they have found along the way. That's the difference, in my opinion, between conservatives and liberals. Well, not liberals. I want to say lefties, because I feel like liberals are pretty reasonable people, but these people here are clearly like very far left folks, and they react a lot with emotion. In that emotion, a lot of times they close themselves off to facts and stats and things of that nature. That's just my opinion.
Manipulating trans medical care.
Yep,
I think there's 3 types of doctors out there.
everybody's gonna sit
I
down.
think there are the ones who absolutely think that they're doing this for the right reasons. I think that there are the ones who are absolutely doing it for money, like we saw at Vanderbilt. The people at Vanderbilt literally said this is a huge moneymaker. And then I think that there are, I don't know if it's incompetence or ineptitude or laziness. Because what we're seeing, not just in the trans community, we're seeing in society, SSRIs being pushed on patients. Mental
That's
health
true. I was put on
doctors
SSRIs.
are pushing so many different drugs.
You know why doctors are pushing so many drugs? Because they get kickbacks from the pharmacies. If you've never seen the show, I forget what it's called, with Michael Keaton, it's about the drug company that's pushing, that created Oxycontin. But the doctors were getting kickbacks for the more Oxycontin they prescribed. So the doctors would be more willing to prescribe Oxycontin. So that right alone, if you're a manufacturer of hormones and you're getting kickbacks for more prescriptions of hormones, then you're definitely going to want more people to get your hormone drugs. This is where I think they talk about how easy it is to get hormones. And this is like the scariest part of this whole entire debate. Even scarier than Blossom.
Without getting to the root issues.
See, I have an interesting perspective on this. I've been out for 11 years this year. I've been on testosterone since I was 15 years old. And even looking into it, I waltzed my little ass up into that doctor's office and I left on testosterone. He gave me my first shot in the doctor's office that day.
And that is disgusting. That doctor should be found and he should be fired. There's no reason a kid should come into your office, say, hey, I'm feeling very feminine today, and then I walk out with an estrogen bottle. But I guarantee you if I walked in there and I was like, hey, doc, I'm not feeling very manly. Can you give me testosterone? Being a man, he'd probably say, no, I'm not going to give you testosterone. Why do you think that is? Because the testosterone that I'm going to be giving is not going to be as long-lasting and make as much money as a transition would, or the surgery of a breast reduction, or getting your top removed completely, or your balls cut off. They see money signs. And I guarantee that those doctors have people that they referred him to that are also going to make money. It's a big circle. It's a big circle web. It's just like the drug market. Doctors get you hooked on a drug so that they can send you to rehab, put you on a drug to get you off of it, aka maintenance. Now, I think maintenance is extremely helpful, but I would never have had to be on maintenance if I wasn't prescribed the drug in the first place.
I was 15 years old. What if I had been wrong?
Yeah, what if I had been wrong?
What if I had been wrong? It really just is.
Oh, they won someone over.
I'm joining mid-convo.
Wow, nice to see you.
Because I think like it's
Blossom's
not, I don't
like,
think
what
it's
a
like a
traitor.
huge widespread issue, but I think
Traitor.
we have like a for-profit healthcare system. It does happen. Like I feel like there are I believe that people should be evaluated and go through tests. And like for me, getting on testosterone and getting surgery was a massive process in my life. But
So if this many people all agree on this, why aren't we doing anything about it? And I'll tell you why, because those doctors are in the pockets of Big Pharma. Big Pharma, as you know, with Russell Brand's thing, do not like being trifled with. They do not like being messed with. They're very, very powerful people, and they will take you out. Please don't take me out for this video. I'm just speaking on what those guys are saying. I love you, Pfizer. Please don't kill me or cancel me. Thank you.
I do think that it probably happens, just like you said, like with SSRIs and stuff, like things are overprescribed.
So
I
do
don't
think
really
it's
love you,
a massive
Pfizer.
issue. I think that society in general, as Sarah mentioned, is over-medicalized right now. We're in this weird climate where there are entire political movements behind if you do or you don't have a vaccine, you can't enter this building if you do, you can if you do, you know, it's like crazy. But, you know, when it comes to the trans issue, I think just the fact that there were really almost no detransitioners as recent as like 5-6 years ago, and the fact that it's exploded now shows that it is a massive issue. And, you know,
That's a
I
good
think
point.
that I can reflect what you said. I was over 18 when I started my hormone.
That's a huge point, and I don't mean to cut off Blair. She's making a great point, but I just like to, you know, give my perspective because it's my video. If you don't like it, don't watch it. The amount of detransitioners there are today is alarming because detransitioners before weren't really something you heard a lot about, but now that, you know, you got Dylan Mulvaney being celebrated like some kind of god, people want that power. People want that clout. So they're going to do, and people will do anything to get that attention sometimes. And sure enough, a lot of people realize that they're in over their head halfway through it, and then this isn't the right choice for them, but the doctor had already started them on it, and now there's no turning back, and they're stuck. You know, it's very sad, but that's the reality of the situation.
Hormones, but I had a 20-minute appointment, and just like you, I walked in and out with an estrogen prescription. Insane. I wasn't tested
I didn't
for my
have to
levels.
see a therapist
No.
first. I had no letter.
And you were a child.
I was a
That's
child.
absolutely disgusting.
So, and that is
This
a
is
very,
scary.
very
One of the most
common-
conservative states in the country. So if that's what's going on
Wow.
in Georgia,
Wow.
imagine what's going on everywhere else.
California, hello.
Yeah, when I went for my
Yeah, but California, they probably give out hormone blockers like in an ice cream truck.
initial appointment, I literally helped my doctor find gender dysphoria on his chart and mark it for me.
That's insane.
And I walked out with my prescription.
And
Yeah.
that
It's
day.
terrible.
I mean,
Terrible.
I do a lot of work with the detrans community, and the problem is I actually don't really care too much about, you know, if you are an adult and you walk into a doctor's office and want estrogen and you walk out. I don't think that's an issue. What is an issue is when doctors are not giving all the information, when they're actually telling you that this is what's right for you, and then it's not. They're actually manipulating their patients. They're manipulating, you know, they say if you don't do this, you're gonna kill yourself, and all this stuff. So I would actually rather.
Which is a big proponent of all this. Like, oh, if I don't give this guy hormones, you know, they're going to kill themselves. And why do you think that is? Because people are telling those doctors that that's what's going to happen. Do we know that's what's going to happen? No, we don't. We could be sending these people to mental health clinics and making sure for sure that they're not just suffering from depression or something. Because guess what? If you're going through a depression and you go and you cut off your dick, you may just get more depressed. Because now you're just depressed and you have no dick. Where do we stop? How do we make sure that this is happening for the right people?
A doctor say, I have no idea what this is going to do to you, but it's your body, your choice. You can do what you want, and then leave you on your way, and you can make that decision.
right.
I think they're not asking the patient why. Why do you feel this way? It's a simple question.
Another thing I was never informed of, you know, when I started my hormone journey, and now it seems, you know, like common sense, but I was, you know, 20, so it's like, you know, even 20-year-olds can have oversights. No one told me I had to freeze my sperm.
That's crazy.
So
Remember you
I'm
talked
years
about that.
into estrogen. I reached the point of adulthood where you maybe meet a partner where that might be something you want to do.
So now Blair can never
and
have
I
kids.
learned that I can't. And it's simply because that doctor didn't care to tell me. And why? Who knows? Maybe it was because of money. It was easier for him or better for him to get me in and out and get that money rather than maybe a couple more appointments where I'm having to figure out, how to freeze my sperm in the meantime. But a lot of these doctors are also activists.
They also
they're-
don't
That's
tell
true,
trans
they
men
are.
that they're going to go through menopause.
Right. There's a lot of issues with trans men. Buck Angel talks about that.
He
a
almost
lot of
died.
issues.
Like,
Yeah,
he's
he
a
almost
friend
died.
of mine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't really like
Insane.
this light.
So I actually almost walked up first because I do feel like the system is like pretty broken and there's not enough education, the medical system for doctors to be prescribing all the things that they do. Again, discussing SSRIs, like I was a victim of that myself. And so, I empathize for those stories. I understand that that does happen. I'm not negating that. But I think to negate, medical service to somebody who needs it, who it might be life or death for, just because you feel some type of way about it, isn't right. Like, why do you care what, little Timothy or
Is there an echo in here? Because this guy says nothing but the same stuff over and over and over again. Like, that's all. Like, why do you care about? It's so easy to say, why do you care? I mean, they already laid out a bunch of times why, like a bunch of reasons why they care. Like what's this? I keep forgetting what the person in the red shirt's called, but he literally said, like, what if I was wrong? That's why he cares. What if he was wrong? I mean, thank God he was right, but what if he was wrong? His life would have been ruined. And I promise you, everybody walking into them offices isn't 100% right.
or Sally are doing or whatever. Like, why do you personally care what?
Well, Timothy and
Well, they're
Sally are 8
children,
and 12.
so-
Okay. Sorry, we're doing no comments.
But we're not talking about.
I don't know
children
why they
7
put
or 12, and
themselves
this
in
doesn't happen often. Has it happened? Yeah, it has, because that's the
putting
thing.
themselves
it's
in
a
the
big
video
world.
like that.
Like, things happen all the time. Things we can't.
Jubilee
even
should bring me on.
It's
I
just
have a lot of
reality.
perspectives on
But again,
things.
to walk through a door and then close it for other people to walk through, that's kind of messed up.
Again, the door comment is so dumb. Like, if I walk through a door and I realize that there's, a booby trap on the other side, I'm going to lock that door behind me to make sure that nobody can get hurt by the booby trap that's on the other side of the door. Like, if I walked outside, like, okay, here's a good example. At work, at my job, sometimes I'll be cutting the grass or I'll be doing, like trimming of trees or something like that, and there'll be a beehive. If I can't get to that beehive today, if I set up cones around that beehive to make sure that nobody's going to come and get hurt by that beehive, it's the same thing as the door. If there's a beehive in a closet, I'm going to make sure that closet stays closed because I don't want those bees getting out. So the whole expression, closing the door behind you that you got the walk through, is pretty mean. No, it's not. Not if you're protecting someone from what's on the other side. It's not.
In my opinion.
So to your point for being able to receive hormone therapy.
I'm surprised nobody's corrected him on that.
I had a similar experience.
Because I'm
I
not
was
that
able to
smart.
walk in
and I think
access to hormones.
I make a good
and
point.
That system was set up through
Oh,
advocacy because
this
of
is the snooze
what a lot
guy.
of community folks are actually facing when it comes to access to hormones, access
he's
to
still
medical
talking.
care, access to all of these things. So a lot of these nonprofits actually got rid of a lot of the red tape because for some individuals like myself who was actually homeless during my transition process, I would have never been able
Did you guys know that he was homeless? I think he's only said it about 150 times so far that he was homeless.
to afford access or get through all of this process.
And I don't see what being homeless has to do with hormones. I don't. Clearly, you could walk into the doctor's office, get your hormones, and leave. I think the doctor knows as long as you're willing to pay. And again, this goes back to he can't get them because they're expensive. I mean, he's kind of proven his point right there. If you can't afford to transition, then people who can afford to transition, that's big money for those doctors.
Now, can I admit that there is some medical malpractice? Yes, I myself had issues obtaining testosterone consistently.
Wow,
for some reason,
one person out of the whole entire panel had a hard time getting their hormone drugs. If that's not alarming, I don't know what is.
the script doesn't match up, or you got to get in contact with a doctor, and it was part of the reason why I chose actually to go off testosterone, because I didn't like the idea of not having constant access, because I was worried about the damage that it could cause to my body, and also because I wanted to keep intact my reproductive rights. From what I have seen when it comes to these detransitioners, from my understanding in terms of the statistics, trans people are 8% of the population, And then the detransitioners are somewhere from 1 to 8% as well. So all of these laws that are coming in is to affect the entire community as a broad, while the percentages that we're affecting people is so small. Well, simultaneously, if we looked at things like in the past, like HIV with things like AZT drugs that were harming folks, those folks went through all of those processes and learned the research of what it was to properly
God, this
take care
guy's
of
so
HIV
boring.
through that unfortunate, horrible, horrific process.
I mean, it was basically chemo.
Yeah, I mean, AZT was killing people and they had no clue what we're doing. Now, unfortunately, because trans people have not got access to medical transition as long, and especially in the transmasculine community, there's a lot of research.
Okay, so are you comparing hormones to AZTs? Like you just said that AZTs were killing people. So how do you know this isn't killing people? I mean, this is a very new thing. In the grand scheme of things, transitioning as popular as it is right now is very, very new. This only started happening alarmingly probably like right before COVID. That's when most people were like, yo, I'm going to go hack off my dang schlong.
Research that has not been done. So to a degree, yes, we are guinea pigs in the shot in the dark. But just like in the 80s when AZT was being discovered, or 90s when it was being discovered, those folks had to go through that process. And I was given informed consent and understood that when I signed that.
We just don't know because the studies aren't there, like you said, right? So the problem is when you talk about like the detransition rate, what generally happens is there's no follow-up. The longest study that's been done is 5 years out. The average detransition happens between 4 and 10 years.
Yeah.
So we're not capturing all of that. Plus, if you haven't had your primary sex organs removed, you literally just stop taking hormones, and then you never go see your doctor again. And so they never follow up, and you just fall off the rolls. So the stats on detransition is completely false.
So I want to say something. First of all,
Yeah, because if you could just stop your hormone pills, like, and you're gonna go back to being who you were before, like, you're not gonna go report that. You're just gonna stop taking your medicine. You're not gonna go to the doctor and be like, "Excuse me, doctor, I think I'm changed my mind. Can you give me back testosterone to counteract all the estrogen you've given me?" I feel like your body would just naturally, once it runs out of the hormones that's going through your body as it is, your body will just start reproducing what it was supposed to make in the first place. So you don't need to go and report that. So there's probably way more detransitioners out there than we even know about.
with everyone here when it comes to healthcare system, because it's not always for us. I don't think that doctors are manipulating trans care. I think they're still learning about trans care. And to your point, there is not a lot of research because the research is still new and fresh.
Okay, so so by Blossom's estimation, then let me just start cramming all these pills down people's throat, and I'm not going to know what it's going to do, but I'm going to learn what it's going to do. Like, that's not how doctors behave. And if it is, they should stop, because that would be like a doctor giving me an experimental prescription that is for the flu when I broke my leg. And he's like, I'm just going to see if this helps. I'm not sure, but I'll find out in a year or so if your leg heals from this flu medication. Like, that's just not simply how doctors work. And if it is, then our system's way more broken than I ever thought it was.
Detransitioning is a thing, but truth be told, detransitioning is actually rare when it comes to not just wanting to be trans anymore. Now, the underlying factors with
Blair's
that
like, I'm
is
getting dumb
healthcare
listening to this
conditions,
woman.
which I actually heard a trans man who is famous talk about, very well. I agree with what y'all were saying because these issues are very, very real, but also I think it's really because doctors are still learning about our experience.
Jeez,
So
how
I
much
just
more
have
time
to
of this
say,
do we got left? Oh, another 20 minutes.
Some things that were brought up about detransitioners, which I found
This is a long
bit
haul,
ironic,
guys.
right? Because for a community that is 1% or less of the general population, we can never seem to find it within ourselves to find empathy for, even if it is the 1% of our community, which is detransitioners, and for the horrific medical malpractice, abuse, mental and spiritual turmoil they go through. It's like, so we want the rest of the world to say this 1% matters, but our 1% doesn't matter. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's not as if they detransition because of, just like you said, the loosening of all the restrictions to get on these drugs. It's like,
I wonder if Alexander is like just hating the fact that he has to sit next to Blair right now. That's got to be driving him crazy. He's got to be like, I want to just elbow this girl.
that's not a good thing. Gatekeeping is a good thing. like making sure the right people are getting on these drugs so there aren't regret cases, there
Yeah.
aren't botched cases.
Absolutely.
That's what we have to go towards, because right now we're going down the slippery slope of anyone can get on it. Every single person here, I'm pretty sure, just stated that they went in and walked out in an hour or less to get their hormones, and that's a huge problem, especially
That is a big
child.
problem.
Because of things that have happened
Big
to
problem.
me, I can see
15,
a
it's
future
crazy.
where transitioning for adults is like I can because of everything that's going on with kids.
Yeah, I think most of us are against a ban on stuff like that. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're all sitting
obviously,
here for a
but-
reason.
Yeah, and again, I just want to reiterate, like Blair, for instance, and Sarah, and like a couple of the other people, maybe not Alexander, but I 110% support their right to live the life that they want. Blair's clearly a woman. You can tell in just the mannerisms in which she presents herself, like she was meant to be a woman. Either that or she just practiced it, but I don't think you can practice that because that's just natural reaction. So I believe that there are people who need this and want to live this life and have a right to live this life. So I would never be for banning adults. Would I be for making sure that adults that are doing it are supposed to be? Hells to the yes. And no kids. No kids whatsoever.
I think I had the common ground though, because everybody here kind of also admitted that we don't have the research. And so when we don't have the research, and I'll tell you, I think that adults can do what they want, but I think we don't push forward with transitioning children until we have the research. We do the research. And this is actually what GenSpec pushes as well. GenSpec organization, they push to get more research on it. So we absolutely know what this does. Because even the WPATH guidance, the latest guidance from WPATH, everything that it says even about puberty blockers, it cites a study, and then it says we don't know.
To your point about gaining research, how do you expect the medical community to gain access to research if we're just preventing these folks to actually go through any of the processes to learn the scientific method of what?
Trials like they do with other medications, like find people who want to do it and then run trials. Don't just start giving it out to the public. Like that's how they do these things. They don't just start slinging pills and seeing what happens. They do trials, and they make sure that, you know, they study medicines over long periods of time with a small, like, counted group that's looked over. They don't just start slinging them out to anybody who walks in that door. That's not how that works.
What is happening, just like with AZT drugs, where we learned that that was actually harming us, and now we have things like Biktarvy.
Yeah, so it's the same way as we have with any research. You have a very select, very heavy gatekeeping crew that you're allowed to, you know, create these studies around. And you need a good checklist to be like, these people show all the actual signs of gender dysphoria. They are having like very strong distress, you know, and in every state that's passed bans on access for minors also has provisions except for in the most extreme cases to conduct studies on.
Gender affirming transition is suicide prevention.
Gender affirming transition is suicide prevention. No, suicide prevention is suicide prevention. All right. You could still be transitioned and kill yourself, you know. I think suicide is just to be clear, all right, we're going to get dark for a second. There was a period of time when I was in the peak of my drug addiction that I wanted to kill myself. I thought my daughter would have been better off. I thought everybody around me better off if I was just gone and out of their hair. Thank God I didn't do it, because I've found a way to put my life back together. I don't think turning myself into a woman during that time would have affected my depression whatsoever, you know? So I don't think that it's personally suicide prevention. Well, it helps some people, maybe. Maybe if you're having gender issues, you know, maybe it'll help you, but it's not suicide prevention. If anything, it could be suicide affirmation. You know, like people who go and cut off their dick and go to regret it might kill themselves because now they can't orgasm, they can't climax. You know, you cut off your appendage and now okay, just to be clear, I know they don't cut it off. They cut it in half and they tuck it up into your taint and give you a vagina. So I know they don't necessarily cut it off, but you might as well, you know, because, you know, it's just, but yeah, my answer is no. It's not suicide prevention. It's, if anything, it's putting a Band-Aid on a much bigger problem. Putting a Band-Aid on the stab wound.
I mean, obviously, it's a known
Look
thing
at our
that
unified
trans
front,
women
all
are
four of
greater
us.
risk of
That's not the
suicide
side
and
I'd want to be
suicidal
on.
ideations,
I want to be
which are
honest. If
horrible
I
and
agree with
inflame you and,
Blossom,
like, ruin your life and make it
then I'm on
awful.
the wrong side.
And so I know there are a lot of kids in a lot of pain, and growing up as a trans kid, I was in so much pain, and I feel like I could have been spared of a lot of that and gotten to enjoy my life a lot more if I had earlier access to gender affirming care. And even the gender affirming care that I did receive later in my life, and I went on hormones when I was like 16 and I got top surgery at 17, that completely changed my life in the most dramatic way.
But this person's still very young. Like, what if in 5 years he's back into depression again? Like, was he going to go back to being a girl and see if that fixes things? Like, this is the only thing I have a problem with. All of these people are very, well, except for Blossom. She looks like she might be in her 50s. The person speaking right now can't be any older than 20. So, of course, this is still a new experience for him. And he's probably very excited and he feels he got a new lease on life. But guess what? When those tough times start rolling back in, I don't think just changing your sex is going to have enough to hold you moving forward.
And so, yeah, I think it is life-saving care, and I think a lot of trans people would agree.
I agree as well, too. I think gender dysphoria is a real thing, and we all deal with gender dysphoria differently. I know for myself or whatnot, there were times I wanted to end it all. And for me,
First off, I'm going to say bullshit, because if there's one thing that Blossom loves, it's Blossom. And we've learned that. She's way too narcissistic to ever take herself out of the argument.
went to desperate measures to align.
That's not fair. Maybe she could have been. But from what I've seen, she's her biggest fan.
Inside. And for some of us, especially living in the South, we don't always have access to hormone care. So some of us have to go to the black market. We have to do things to our body to be able to align us to where we are not willing to commit suicide. I don't think that's the only way. I think there are other ways as well too. But honestly, sometimes people just want somebody that cares, that wants to listen as part of
I think
the
everybody wants
regimen
that.
to being able to prevent suicide.
I've chosen to not medically transition in my body.
Because you're not a tranny. You are non-binary. I think we all established this.
I'm half, let's put it that way. But, and this is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud, but I am having facial feminization surgery. And that was an incredibly...
Now, is he doing that because of this conversation? I can't help but wonder if Blair's criticism of him just got to him and he's that malleable that her busting his chops is going to make him do that. And that's why he hasn't announced it yet. Like, that he's waiting to do it now after someone criticized him. This is what, people are afraid of, is that pressure leads to people making decisions that might not be beneficial for them.
Ridiculously difficult journey, even as an adult who has a really good job and access to really great health care. But I still had to go through so many hoops, and I was still denied by insurance. And in my own personal life, I've also...
Yeah, because your insurance doesn't cover cosmetic surgery. I had to get septoplasty from several breaks from skating and stuff like that. And while I was doing it, I was like, you know what? Can you just shave a little off the top and make my nose look a little nicer, doc? And he said, and I was like, it'll be covered under insurance, right? Because I need it. And they said, well, we'll cover your septoplasty, but we're not going to cover your rhinoplasty. So they won't cover anything cosmetic.
Also struggled quite a bit with mental health, and a lot of that really relates to the certain parts of my body. Like, I always hated my body when I was younger, and I didn't understand why. And and I was...
Please, everybody hates their body in some aspect or another. Well, maybe not Blossom. Blossom seems to love herself. But, most people, like, we live with ourselves all day long, every day. We know every mistake we've ever made because we live with ourselves 24/7.
Always dressing, as like a cis male, and I just had all this stuff just didn't fit. It just didn't feel right, and it was just like this darkness in my life. Like, I just wanted it, gone, and I just learned to live with it. But then eventually, like, after figuring out who I am and all that, like, now I know, like, this is life-saving care. Like, this for me is life-saving care. Like, who knows where I could be in a few years had I not.
You'll probably go back to being Alexander after the fad of transitioning dies down. I guarantee you, in the next few years, we're going to see more detransitioners than we've ever seen, because right now, transitioning is a fad. Not for people like Blair or Sarah, or maybe even Blossom. But right now, people are getting a lot of clout for being a trans person.
Known who I am.
And people like that. People
to.
want that clout.
How y'all doing?
I think too often we hear, that if we don't affirm our child's, gender identity that's different than their sex, then they're going to commit suicide. We hear this all the time, especially from the detransition community whose parents were told this and it was manipulative. We hear politicians say this all the time when they're trying to, stop bills or pass bills. The problem with that is that's the same line that abusers use. So when you're in a relationship, if you're going to leave somebody and they say, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, then that is an abusive situation. And it's not, so that's the premise we start with. Transition, I mean, we're all here, we know. Transition is not an easy process. It takes a heavy mental toll. And so I really think that if you're already suicidal, you have to get that in check.
Absolutely.
You have to be in a healthy place before you can even think about going through the medicalization of transitioning.
Yeah, because straight up, like what she just said, changing. What if changing your sex doesn't change your depression? What if it doesn't help? Now you have two giant issues. You just compound it. Way more problems on top of others, So, it's just one of them things that, like, if you're not, like, you should get yourself in a happy place first, and then if you still want to transition, maybe transition. But transition should not be an option for someone as a last-ditch effort to save yourself,
You can socially transition. I think that's absolutely fine. But I think that, before you even think about medically transitioning, then I think you have to have your head right before that.
Well said.
Hormones will make you feel kind of crazy anyways. So I think that's why, it's not.
Crazy. See, when it comes to gender affirming care, I appreciate everything that gender affirming care has done for me. And I thank God every day that this was the right decision for me, because I have friends
Andrew,
like
that's his
Richie,
name.
who it wasn't the right decision for, and now he's missing genitals. So, when it comes to it being life-saving, the reason I didn't step
Well said.
forward, even as somebody who might agree with that prompt, is because correlation is not causation.
What do you mean by that?
Just because something is related to another thing does not mean it directly causes it.
Okay.
She just didn't know what it
There's a
meant.
little thing called a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And sometimes when we create a narrative, it can kind of take on a life of its own. So I know there's a lot of talk about suicide statistics in the trans community. And interestingly, almost all of those statistics come out of LGBT activist organizations who have an incentive to put those numbers out to
Ba-bam, right there.
this image that we are suffering greatly, we're under attack, and then all of those suicide rates are due to societal mistreatment. And when these
Yep.
kids are being told, like you said, when they're going
Dropping
into
truth bombs.
these doctors, the doctors are telling their parents essentially emotional blackmail. They're saying, trans your kid or your kid's gonna die. And they say it in front of the child, and they set up this false dichotomy as if those
And
are
kid's
the
gonna be
only two
terrified.
options moving forward. And here to tell any child feeling any type of way, those are not your only two options. In fact, there is a vast array of options in between and around suicide and transition. Therapists and doctors aren't even legally allowed.
I just got to stop right there because Jubilee has 8.33 million subscribers. Guarantee you what Blair said right there, where there's some kid on the fence thinking about doing this, listening to Blair, probably just saved their life. And they're not going to transition because of it, because they're going to go seek out some other option first. Because you have these advocacy groups telling you how beautiful trans is, how great it is. Like everybody should be trans, right? No, not everybody should be trans. It's like go to a mental professional first, And if they're the one telling you that you're trans, go to another one. If he tells you to, maybe you're on to something. But people shouldn't transition just to be cool.
Say, no, you're not trans, you're actually experiencing A, B, or C. And that's the case with detrans people as well. They have this huge host of issues: depression, body dysmorphia, anorexia, eating disorders, maybe sexual abuse in their past. People don't know that a long observed symptom of sexual abuse is wanting to be the other gender to cope with it.
Ba-bam.
This has been in textbooks forever. So I just think, I'll wrap it up really quickly. I just think it's a false dichotomy that it's either death or transition. But with that said, I agree with you. I appreciate everything that transition's done for me, but it's too much of a roll of the dice, and I think it's unhealthy telling people, do it or you're gonna die, especially a child.
So for the LGBTQ organizations, we also have to remember that they are relying on reputable resources. And a lot of those reputable resources are the medical research that has been put out there. So all they can do is take that information and be able to disseminate that into the community.
And-
to be quite honest with you, hold on just a second. To be quite honest with you, and let's also be clear that these research
Hang on. Sorry. I know you want to demolish my point right here, so let me add some more and see if I can get any of this to stick to the wall.
researchers are also collaborating with these organizations because they are the ones that have the most outreach to the community that they need to serve,
Yes.
which is the trans community. Because oftentimes the reason why nonprofit grassroots organizations are created in the first place is because there was no place for us. And so it is really hard to get that research to be able to do that. We can agree to disagree, but the research has not been completely fulfilled yet because a lot of these people don't even know about our experience, and that is why it's important that we make it very clear what we need to do.
There's also, speaking of the numbers that come out of LGBT activist organizations, there was a little number that the life expectancy of a trans woman was 35. That was rescinded a couple years ago after like over a decade of that being like just factually, shared. And I always thought that my life was statistically going to end at 35. So, but those numbers were based on, by those organizations, prostitute deaths. So
Yep.
it's not always the most reputable numbers they're getting, you know what I mean? And these activist organizations are political too. We get caught up in calling them activists and we think it's this emotional, spiritual thing, but they are political organizations.
Yeah, so I am an activist, and so a lot of
Oh,
we're
no, you don't
talking about
say.
really was focused more on Black
I'm an activist. Wow. What a shock. We didn't know, Blossom. Couldn't tell you were an activist.
trans women because Black trans women do not live past the age of 35 because oftentimes it is our group within the trans community that is often murdered, we're often harassed, we're often discriminated against, and so a lot more of that focus has had to be around Black, brown, indigenous folks because oftentimes the research goes missing for us.
They sourced it from prostitutes though. That was the source of the
But
stat.
see, the thing is, though, even when we talk about prostitutes, trans women have to sometimes participate in sex work to survive.
But they based it off cis prostitutes. Sorry,
But-
I'm done. It was
yes,
just, it was false numbers.
So from what
Like she's not listening to what Blair's saying. Like she's like, your statistic is wrong and this is why. And she's like, no, but your statistic is wrong and this is why. But I just want you to understand that your statistic is wrong and here's why. And Blossoms just keep going. Because now that she doesn't have that statistic, she's got nothing.
What I understand is a lot of that focus has always been around Black trans women because we do not get to see the age of 35. You are in a place, when I say privilege, you're in a place of privilege where you do not have
That's
to
such a
worry about
washed up thing to
harassment and
say.
discrimination that I face. I face as a Black person. I face as a
We're
Black
not-
Yeah, now she's like, okay, the trans part's not sticking. Let me try going with the race card.
We're gonna get
I'm
into
not going to
that.
say that you do not experience harassment or discrimination. That's not what I'm saying because, like you said, you're
I mean, she literally has during this whole panel. Like, everybody's been ganging up on her this whole time, and she's held her own, I would have to say. Like, Blair is one impressive woman.
a person of nuance. And so follow me here. When I come as a person of color, as a Black trans woman, you and I do not get to have that same experience. There are
You
more
went to the
rooms.
White House,
there are,
I didn't.
There are more rooms.
Oh, you went to the White House. I didn't. And why do you think that is? Why do you think they brought... Well, they did take Dylan Mulvaney, but yeah, they brought her because she fits the narrative. You know, whose vote do you need? I don't know why they're so obsessed, though, with the trans vote. If it's only 8% of the population, that shouldn't be, like, a number you need so badly. But maybe they're just counting on, like, allies or something.
Get to walk in that I will be forbidden in. And one thing about it is that's why it's
What? Like what? Where can she go that you can't? I would love for one single example of this. Just one. One example of where Blair White can go that...
important. Like someone like me has
She's literally taken my IQ and just turned it all the way down to 6. Listening to her. Blossom. That's it. Whew, for a second there, I thought I went like full on like...
to create her own space to be able to
did I.
counteract what you're doing. And I'm
So
not
did I.
saying that you don't. But what I'm saying here is what I'm trying to get you to understand.
What I'm trying to get you to understand is that I am a bigger victim than you. I am more victimized than you. What are you not understanding about this? I don't know. What am I saying anymore? I lost my thought. I'm just a big victim, though. Just understand that my life is a lot harder than yours, Blair. Miss 6 million followers. I only went to the White House because they don't like me.
My Blackness should not have to pay for your whiteness
Oh my God. My blackness should not have to pay for your whiteness. Do you want to know why? Because it sounds good.
That doesn't make
is
sense.
destroying.
It's like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it only took like an hour and 20 minutes into the video. Not this video. This video's been like almost at 3 hours now. But it went an hour and 20 minutes for someone to finally be like, Blossom, you don't make any sense.
My community.
I'm
because of
destroying your
privilege.
community.
So are you gonna tell all of my exes that?
I am destroying. Yeah. Blair, stop destroying the black trans community. Damn you. How dare you?
Say that and then that's the end.
What you're talking about too is there's not the research. You're right, there's not. Everybody likes to cite the Turbin study, and Jack Turbin is a complete
From here on out, the number one enemy of the black community is Blair White.
activist. You can just go to his Twitter account and see how actively involved he is in this and how financially.
Sorry, what was his name?
Jack Turbin.
Okay.
And you can see how much he's
Jack Thurman.
financially gained off of this study. And the issue is the study is based on a survey. And so it's based on a survey of adults. And so when you're doing surveys are not scientifically accurate. They're the least accurate way to do a study. And so when you're
I don't know. Don't tell that to Steve Harvey at Family Feud. He lives off of surveys. Survey says Blossom is crazy.
when we're basing all this medical care off of a survey, it's a huge issue.
Show me crazy. I mean, that would be Blossom. Blossom would be number one.
And it doesn't serve, it doesn't really, and that's what they're citing to prove that, gender affirming care reduces suicidality.
My question is, if they're using a
Oh,
survey
no.
in terms of how they're gathering data, what do you suggest
We're having-
them
we're-
to use a
we're
tool
really
then to
struggling.
gather data? Because from my understanding,
All right,
a
I'm
lot
sorry.
of surveys
I gotta skip this guy, dude. This guy is just so goddamn boring, dude. Is he still going on?
Enjoyed this debate
Oh,
for
this is
what
the
it
end.
was.
Good.
It was quite,
Be these same people gender affirm.
it was quite ugly.
All right.
Enjoyed this debate
That's the end.
for what it was. It was quite ugly at certain points, and I wish that it was all trans people on the panel because that would have been more appropriate and more fitting.
I mean, I don't understand why they're getting so upset. It literally is trans liberals versus trans conservatives, and Alexander's there, and he's not trans, dude. Like, look at the shocked faces they have. Like, Middle Ground should not have brought him. Like, he should have been saved for a non-binary. Could they not have found another trans liberal?
Oh, you're so offensive. You're an offensive
Okay.
person, human being. Yeah.
Okay.
She's
well,
like, I know.
I find a lot of things over here offensive as well.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah, you're disgusting.
And I have to.
Oh my god. Yeah, you're disgusting. Bro, I don't think you're in any position to be calling anybody disgusting. I'm just saying. That hat. What were you thinking with that hat and that dress? I think they're all just jealous of Blair, to be honest with you. Like, she's like master. She's like the Super Saiyan of trans women.
Trust me, the feeling is more than mutual. But I will say that it was very enlightening.
I wish they didn't cut right there. I would have loved to have heard what happened there because they probably got into it.
And I hope to be back at Jubilee soon.
I definitely think this was interesting.
Jubilee will definitely have her back because Blair is like super famous.
Obviously, I don't think we have a lot of common ground on a lot of things, but I think we found some. I
Like
think
hardly
the
any
most
common ground.
conservative-
I've seen conservative parents and liberal kids like get way more done than these two. I would love to see like Nazis versus Jews or something like that and see. I guarantee you they probably would have found more middle ground than these two.
In general believe is as an adult you can do what you want with your body. I talk to conservatives all the time. We don't allow children to make decisions for themselves on a wide range of issues.
Yep.
And that's why we don't let them, mutilate their bodies.
I mean, it was educational and enlightening. I got to learn a lot, and it's nice meeting all of you.
I liked hearing the different perspectives, and I feel like even though I'm like definitely in my beliefs, like I understand where things come from, I just do not agree saying that everybody on this panel is not trans. I think it's bullshit, and I think you're trans and you're a part of my community.
Thank you.
Yep.
I really appreciate it.
Despite all of the madness,
I'm just desperately craving acceptance.
enjoyed conversation with all of y'all. I love debates. We don't have to agree.
Oh yeah, you totally love debates because you love shouting over everybody and just throwing out stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the debate itself. Like, I could debate Ben Shapiro and I'll just talk about Star Wars the whole time, and Blossom would consider that a win.
Agree with with each other, but these conversations need to continue happening because they're not happening anywhere else. And so until we're all creating more platforms around this for ourselves so other people can understand, then, let's keep at it.
God, please, if you watch this video, don't listen to anything Blossom says. If you want a really strong trans person to listen to Blair. She'll teach you how to be strong in this world. If you listen to Blossom, you're just going to be thinking of you're going to be given a million different reasons of why you're a victim. And that is no way to live. Victimhood is a pathetic way to live your life.
I mean, honestly, regardless of my interaction with Blair here today, we are all, for the most part, I think, mostly in an echo chamber in our own lives. So it's nice, actually, to be in front of all these people.
Yeah. And Blossom's like, yeah, nobody ever usually disagrees with me. I was so shocked that people were disagreeing with me today, even though everything I said had nothing to do with what we were actually talking about.
Especially the ones who don't see the things the way I do, because it also opens my eyes to see, like, maybe I could rethink X, Y, Z, or maybe.
Yeah, because you are malleable. You decided you were going to get facial surgery after Blair called you out for not being trans. Like, that's you, bro.
There's something I learned today. I'm not closed off to learning something new or to changing my mind, because I've done that before and I can do that again. And
Yeah, that's how you ended up looking like this, dude.
Will evolve as a human being.
All I have to say to the general public is start thinking of reasons why you supported doing this to kids.
And to that point,
Oh, God, this guy.
Come on,
And to that point, I've wanted to go to bed for
it's
the
just,
past 3
I'm hoping
hours.
that folks will be able to understand why the activism is there and what it is, because generally there may be mistakes made in that light, but at the end of the day, we are, as trans people, trying to gain access to society in a healthy, safe way, and also see a future for ourselves, which is something that I never had access to with the way that I grew up in a lot of that ideology of not being allowed to do things when I was 18, even though I knew exactly who I was.
Well, I actually ended it with a good, with something good there. All right, guys. So, lots to digest there. Again, I just want to say that I don't know what it's like to be a trans person. I'm not a trans person. I like being a dude. It's fun. I get to pee outside. I don't have to sit down to pee. There's many cool things about being a guy. With that said, I wanted to approach this video from a perspective of a fly on the wall, someone who's just a very generic dude who doesn't have like a lot of hot takes, although I might, if you guys like this video, I'll start doing some more hot takes. I like to think of myself as like the baseline of society because I'm just so plain Jane and normal. And so I just thought it would be a good idea to just watch this video and, if not for anything else, learn some things. And I did. I know a lot more now about the trans community than I did going into this video. My opinions on conservative and liberals haven't really changed. I feel like the conservatives won this debate hands down. The liberals didn't really bring anything except attitude. Well, Blair gave attitude. Blair won this debate on her own. Well, actually, Sarah really was pretty impressive as well. She was. The other two, conservative, didn't really add too much. I mean, the nerdy dude, though, he had some good one-liners. But then the fourth girl didn't really say a whole lot. She kind of seemed like she was just enjoying the conversation. The liberal side, your leader was Blossom, and well, Blossom, I guess, just thinks she wins arguments by just saying whatever comes into her head, and I don't know if that's a good way of winning debates. But anyway, guys, this is EG Lately. This is a long one, man, so if you guys got to this point in the video, thank you so much. I hope you guys will subscribe for more. We got a lot coming up. Like, this channel is just... I've had this channel since 2009, but now I'm really going to start getting this thing going. So I hope that you guys all have a great day and enjoy the rest of your night. Bye-bye. Blair's my dog. That's my dog.